David, their best cover corner, has a broken thumb.
Welcome to SicEm365 Radio.
Deflection, then right on that midcourt line. Now Butler has it up ahead, got numbers. Mitchell with the left hand scores.
SicEm365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Catch is made by Amari Cooper, who broke free. Inside the 20, stays in bounds, and is wrestled out at the Eagles' 8-yard line.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Over the middle, he's got a man in stride, and walking into the end zone is Josh Fleeks with the touchdown.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go on this Friday afternoon. Pretty busy schedule. Grayson Grunhafer on Baylor football recruiting at 3:45. We'll hear from Hobby Howe. Browsers parking across the street from McLean Stadium on the parking and tailgating available during game days coming up this fall. Also, we run for the first time on the show the first full the interview. Don Truill and Lawrence Elkins. Now, we did run the podcast or whatever you want to call it on 4th of July or 5th, Monday the 5th. But we'll have that today just after about 4:20 or so. The entire interview in studio with the great Don Truill and Lawrence Elkins. Hope you enjoy it. Also today, Trayvon Bromley, one of 3 Baylor athletes, student athletes, former Baylor stars in the Olympics. Casey Lightfoot with the pole vault. Will London, the third, Waco High's very own, in the what he does as well. We've had Will London on. We've had Casey Lightfoot on. Trayvon Bromley, I don't know if we'll get him before the Olympic Games, but Gatorade sent us a 5 or 6 minute feature on him and his behind-the-scenes training, getting ready for the Tokyo Games, and we'll have that today for you at about 3:20. He talks about a lot of things he's been through. Remember, he had two broken knees, and he's had ACL.
Well, he was out
and
for
much more. Yeah,
like pretty much almost 2 years. I mean, when we talked to Clyde Hart, which you can hear up on the podcast site, along with hundreds of other interviews. But, yeah, Clyde Hart made mention of the fact that Trayvon had dealt with a lot of injuries. And, I kind of wondered there for a little while, not knowing a lot about track. I mean, I knew it wasn't anything he couldn't come back from, but you kind of wondered, like, maybe he loses that edge of being like a premier Olympian type of sprinter. But fortunately, even though it took a little while, he's been able to bounce all the way back, and he's the American favorite, in the Olympics. And, we'll see how the world competition stacks up, but he'll have a chance to medal, if not, win the dadgum thing. I mean, he's in the race, so he's got a chance. So, happy for him. Happy he's having success.
So we'll have that here in about 15, 18 minutes or so.
And when it comes to male sprinters now in the Olympics, the world's opened up because Usain Bolt's not going to be there wrecking it for everybody.
Yeah,
so.
But I don't know. I'm sure somebody from Jamaica or somebody from those countries that have had great sprinters like the United States. There's always a guy on occasion from Canada. I haven't really paid attention to the rest of the world, but and because really for almost a year or so, plus it's been 5 years since the Olympic Games, so we'll see what happens. We'll have that at 3:20. Paul's top 5 at 5:55 on a director, a movie guy. Today.
Richard Donner, rest in peace.
Richard Donner, who passed away apparently earlier this week. Now, have you guys heard of Overtime Elite?
No.
Overtime Elite. Their website, overtimeelite.com, the next generation of athlete empowerment. OTE is transformative, new sports league that offers the world's most talented young basketball players a better pathway to becoming professional athletes and engage and inspire a new generation of fans. What does that sound like to you?
That sounds like a new G League in a way for people to bypass college.
Yeah, and probably has to do a little bit with high school as well, I would think, because that pathway can't be too much different if it's just simply the college, because we've been there and done that. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the NBA goes back to the, high schoolers declaring straight for the league in the near future. But, that's interesting. But, yeah, it sounds like another gimmicky thing that is kind of, like Paul said, bypassing the school structure.
Not sure who's paying for it, not sure who is the one underwriting it, but here's why I brought it up. Jalen Lewis, the number 2 overall basketball prospect in the class of 2023 at ESPN's rankings, is signing with Overtime Elite. He's the highest-ranked recruit to sign with the Upstart League, considered the top big man in the rising junior class, spurning interest from Kentucky, Duke, UCLA, and Michigan. Spurning interest from Kentucky, Duke, UCLA, and Michigan. He's from Oakland, California, Bishop O'Dowd High School.
And one thing to mention is he is 16 years old, and he has signed a multi-million-dollar contract.
Mm-hmm. So this is kind of like the... Is this like another level of IMG Academy for basketball?
Yeah.
Even worse because, they're paying multi-million-dollar contracts. So it's a bit of a step up from that school that I would not be surprised if they pass a little cash here and there. But I doubt it's multi-million-dollar contracts like this. And, for it to happen in basketball is not surprising because that's the sport where they've been like recruiting 7th graders for 20 years now. Mm-hmm. So they've always been, it's almost like the talent gets younger and younger, and we've seen that in football to an extent as well, but that's always been prevalent in basketball. I mean, I remember hearing about LeBron James when he was 15 years old. Now, credit to the people who saw that in him, but I also have heard about Sebastian Telfair, and I've heard about a dozen other guys who are supposed to be the next Michael Jordan or Kobe or LeBron and wash out in large part because they can't handle all this attention that they're getting at 15, 16 years old. So, yeah, I mean, that's interesting, that's for sure. And you wonder how big that gets, but with millions of dollars being thrown around, I'm sure it'll get pretty big.
I'm sure it'll grow. And I'll say this. I think that anything that weeds out people who have no interest in being in college is actually good for college basketball. Now, feel free to correct me if my logic is flawed here. And I know that, yes, they're going to lose out on some really good talent. But I think we've started to see recently, if you look at the last few national champions, Baylor, Virginia, Villanova, that veteran teams are better. So guys who are not all ready to be pros, building and getting better, and you get to see those guys for a couple years and grow together, like the old Duke teams and the Michigan, like the Fab Five. The reason the Fab Five was really cool to watch is because they played 3 years together. You got to see them as freshmen and then as juniors, and of course lose to Duke every time or whatever they did, or the North Carolina game where Weber called that timeout. You got to build something with them. So I think in a weird way, even though you're not going to get this guy's not going to play college basketball, and that's really unfortunate for college basketball that we won't get to see, one of the better big men come and play college basketball. But if he doesn't want to be a college athlete, then good luck. I hope it works out for you. But in the end, I think it'll be better when people who are invested in the college game play the college game.
Okay,
they'll make it better.
They've signed 5-star prospects, the Thompson kids, class of 2022. Also, Bewley, Bewley, a couple of them. In the class of 2023. And, there's going to be enough to probably have a league. But here's the deal.
Well,
they want to play against the elite high school teams in America. And there are some high school teams like Oak Hill Academy
IMG.
or others, IMG, and there are others that have sprouted up that will play them. Baylor's got a couple of guys. Let's not act like they don't. With Kendall Brown and Jeremy Sohan, and then also Langston Love, where they bounced around and played where they possibly could at a high level. But they were playing. Sohan went to Europe, but this is kind of what basketball is about. But I just thought that we'd bring this up because I'd never heard of this league until today.
Well, one thing that's interesting is that Kevin Ollie is heavily involved. He's like their director of talent and scouting and whatnot. Do y'all remember the name Kevin Ollie?
Yeah,
the UConn head coach.
Yep.
I mean, so he's involved in this in a major way. And I guess the question that comes to mind for me is if you're bypassing the college route, which – hey, there's plenty of successful people without college degrees, but are you just not going to go to school starting at 16 years old? Because I don't think you're going to be developed really well. I don't think that, is education going to be a part of this in any way, or are they just signing up to, truly play pro basketball at 16 years old? That's my major question because go get that money if you can. If that's what the market dictates, that's fine. He's the youngest professional athlete in American history, apparently. Is what the ESPN article says, but does he continue to go to school? Does he get a GED at least? Because, basketball, I mean, he'll make some quick money right now, but he still is only 16 years old. So, we've seen stories where guys think that the millions are going to be coming their way for the next decade, and the millions never come at all. And so, I'd be very curious about the educational aspect of this, because I would hope they at least require you to get like a GED. I would hope.
Maybe they have classes, or maybe they give you
like
an opportunity to maybe it's kind of, and I'm not, because I don't understand sometimes the homeschooling thing. I get it. Maybe they'll have some sort of tutorials if you want to do it, or this is a straight up agency to get these guys better, play great schedule around the country. Maybe they'll play teams out of Canada. Maybe they'll go play teams. Maybe they'll travel to Europe. I don't know. But Jalen Lewis is going to overtime elite. Yeah,
and all I'm saying is it's one thing if you're 18 and you're LeBron and you go to the NBA and you make millions, that's fine. LeBron graduated high school. If you're 16, you don't graduate high school, I think that's an entirely different ball game. So that's why I'm curious about that.
All right, Daniel, by the way, sounds a lot like Luka when he was a teenager. Luka Doncic when he was overseas with that. Hey, by the way, next Wednesday and Thursday we'll be live at Big 12 Media Days at AT&T Stadium in Arlington. On Wednesday, after our show ends at 6, we'll head to Three Nations Brewery in Carrollton on Vandergrift, just off of 35. And I just got a note from John Royers and Brian Etheridge. All beers for those who are guests of Sic'em365 will be $4 each at Three Nations Brewing Company on I-35 on Vandergrift. So that's next Wednesday at 7 o'clock. All right, when we come back, Trayvon Bromley, as he continues in his story, we know this. We had Trayvon the day he committed to Baylor. Never forget that. We were able to get him on, this amazingly incredible talent out of Florida. And he's been that. He's been all of that. But the story now behind the scenes with him and where he is today compared to where he was 2, 3, 4 years ago when he had all these issues with the one thing that he depends on more than anything else, is legs. And we'll have that for you next on Sic'em365 Radio.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
It's time to fire up the grill, heat up the oven, or get that deep fryer going to enjoy the top quality products at Waco Custom Marketplace. Order 30-pound sacks of live crawfish by 6 on Wednesday. Pick up on Friday afternoon after 2 or Saturday. Enjoy the weekend. 30-pound sacks of live crawfish available right now for $4.25 a pound. Find all the crawfish boil ingredients you need, including red beef potatoes, sausage, corn cobettes, and Louisiana boil seasoning. Make your order for live crawfish by Wednesday at 6. Pick up on Friday after 2 or all day Saturday, and enjoy the weekend. Waco Custom Marketplace, your home for fresh baked kolache, cinnamon rolls every day. Butcher shop to cut your steaks the way you want. Fresh seafood, summer sausage, boudin, house cured and smoked bacon, spices, seasonings, soup mixes, and more, and weekly gift boxes for any occasion. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Allen Samuels is holding the Ram Spotlight event on the new 2021 Ram Lone Star Crew Cab trucks at Allen Samuels. The three-peat Motor Trend Truck of the Year is built to serve. This truck is perfect for whatever your lifestyle calls for. Impressive towing, high-strength steel frame, and the smoothest, most comfortable ride of any truck. Allen Samuels located at 201 West Loop 340 in Waco. Come see the Ram Lone Star Crew Cab. The Ram Spotlight event won't last long. Visit Allen Samuels today or online at allensamuelsdcj.com.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Welcome back to SicEm365 Radio.
The Sic'em365 Radio app is sponsored by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat in Waco. Your friend in the car business at Loop 340 and east of 84. Come by. Let's be friends.
Appreciate Luke and Casola from Gatorade reaching out to us earlier this week about Trayvon Bromley. It's a Gatorade film called Unstoppable. Includes also Raven Saunders, who's a part of the U.S. Olympic track team. I think she's a shot putter as well. But Trayvon Bromley, track and field star, we know that, overcoming the numerous obstacles, achieving greatness. And here is about a 6.5-minute clip with both Raven Saunders, but also quite a bit with Trayvon Bromley, former Baylor star.
People have to understand your mind is a muscle.
First, I start easy money.
People always say, oh, you gotta have the heart, you gotta have the heart. Yeah, you do.
Come on, if you don't, they will. If you don't, they will.
But it first starts with the mind.
Let's go, we gotta eat.
So what I tell people, if your mind is not in it, your heart gonna fail too.
Come on, easy money. Then we live.
Diamonds in my teeth, I got a lot of shine. Running up the number, that's a lot of crime. Try to take it from me, must be out your mind.
Introducing to many of you Trayvon Bromley.
After a breakout season in 2015, Achilles injuries, 2 surgeries, it looked for a while like we had seen the end of this young man. He's come all the way back, and he's running right at his best.
I was always feeling like I was running from something. You know, if it was life, bad decisions that I made growing up, like I had a lot of anger hidden that people didn't know about because I really didn't express it a lot. Not having my father in my life, living in poverty, a lot of gang violence, living with like police brutality and things like that, like it's hard to think positive when there's so much wrong going around you.
Oh wow, I didn't even see that one.
Yeah, that's what's it's steep.
You know, you get to this point and it's like you kind of sometimes forget about the moments like this that help get you to where you are. 2015 indoor and outdoor were my first 2 ever national titles, same year, freshman year, went in hungry, refused to be denied, and got it done, man, crazy. And then I came back 2016, got second team All-American, didn't make the final, so I was second team, and really that propelled me to this title because having lost this really made me step back and question myself and remind myself of who I was. Through my career, or really just my life journey, I've been in so many spaces where it's like, it feels like a dead end, man. Like you're stuck, you're backed up, you're in a corner, and it's like, what do I do? Where do I go? And the second you sit there and you give up or you quit, like, man, you've wasted all of that energy, all of that time, all of that potential, and I don't want to be wasted.
It was a lot that I was running from. I knew I had to make a change for myself. God is saying, you can continue to go down this road. You can hang out late night with the friends, rip and run the streets, do all this craziness and stuff like that, or you can make a difference. You can make a change. You can show people what change looks like. And that was the better route that I took.
One thing about me is if I want something in life, I'm going to get it. I don't care what's in my way. I don't care what obstacles. I don't care what it takes. I'm gonna get it done. I lost 80 pounds in 6 months. I'm gonna get it done.
For people like me, for people like Raven, for many others across the globe, athlete, non-athlete, it's all about what is inside. And I think sometimes it takes that igniter and that fire to let it burst out.
It's that fire, man. Like, people love to talk about the fire, but you can see it. And my fire, though, sometimes and at some points through, my depression, it may dwindle, but it never goes out. Never goes out. It's always there.
It took a very long time to really understand and know my purpose. It took many, many years. What am I supposed to be doing? And once you figure it out and once you feel that fire within, it's hard to extinguish that. I broke both knees, I broke my hip, I hurt my foot, fractured my forearm, I got scoliosis. Like, I have everything that could possibly be wrong with a person to keep them from doing these type of things.
All that rehab, all that road back, both mentally and physically, here now to Eugene. And blasts out of the blocks. Trayvon Bromley leaves Noah Lyles in his wake. And Trayvon Bromley barreling to the finish line and takes the win convincingly.
A lot of us just have a story to tell that we can feed off of. Like, Raven, her sorrows and my sorrows can connect with each other and we can make something great from it. The story behind it is the beauty of it.
When I step back at the world and I'm like, yo, I know for a fact that I can help these young girls, these young men, these young people, these older people, really see that there's more out there besides the challenges that they're going through, because I know through everything I've been through, if I can make it, there's so much that, other people can do. And when I see that fire in somebody else, it just lights another match inside of me.
I tell people, I say, man, track fun, running fast is fun, yes. Don't get me wrong, like, I love doing it, but that's not my purpose. Like, my purpose is to try to help change the spectrum of the world. So I think that's what I'm actually running towards now.
All right, so that's thanks to Gatorade. I love stuff like that. Love it. And I wish it was 35, 40 minutes long, but then again, it would maybe not have the same impact that Trayvon Bromley, Raven Saunders. But I did not know some of that about Trayvon Bromley. We've interviewed him quite a bit. Knew about the injuries, but also when we had him the day that he committed to Baylor many years ago, he did discuss how this gave him a chance to get away. You hear about the opportunities. We've heard it from Baylor basketball players who came from like Mark Vidal, how he wanted to make sure he was not a statistic where he came from in Louisiana. And Trayvon Bromley, those things give me goosebumps. They really, really do.
Yeah, good for him. Great story. And hopefully he does well in Tokyo. There's going to be a weird environment out there, it sounds like, with no fans. And, yeah, it's going to be odd, but I'm sure it'll still be very grand and will still feel very, very important. And obviously it's very important to people like Trayvon Bromley. This is what they worked their whole lives for. So, yeah, very good story. And rooting for him here in a few weeks.
Paul, the Olympic Games, what is perhaps, I understand, depending on winter or summer, gymnastics, swimming, figure skating are sometimes the most powerful of those who draw in the ratings or whatever you want to call it. But track and field. But what is the
100?
Well, no. Yeah. What is the one that is the most fan-oriented part of the Olympic Games?
The sport?
What's the most fan-oriented part of the Olympic Games? Is it not the opening ceremony?
The opening ceremony, yeah.
Will there be anybody in the stands?
I don't think so. I mean,
I don't know if you have the opening ceremonies if there are not all of the pageantry, right?
Yeah.
The colors, the fans, from countries everywhere. Like Craig mentioned, 200.
Well, at least this year we won't get the 40-minute ode to communism that we got in 2008. But I don't think they should do it. I mean, I don't think they should do it. I mean, unless they've got something planned that you can do that doesn't need the people. I mean,
well, the Olympic flame arrived in Tokyo today, looks like, and we're exactly 2 weeks from opening ceremony. So a lot can change between now and then, but the direction that it appears Japan is going, it's going to be by the skin of their teeth, if they're able to do it. Looks very up in the air as of right now, but the flame has arrived, and now I see a story where, apparently the opening ceremony will only be limited to VIPs. So that'll be the athletes and I assume family and coaches and things like that. But, it's going to be at least VIP only, it appears, as of a couple of days ago.
So usually the opening ceremonies is in the main stadium, always in the main stadium, and they have thousands upon thousands of things that are events and whatever, it's fireworks or bands.
Concerts
concerts and dance. It's a culture of where you're going to be. And in Tokyo, I would think it would be just beautiful. Like it is Rio de Janeiro or wherever.
Well, I feel for the people who organized all this.
Like the halftime of the Super Bowl is a miniature thing compared to the opening ceremonies of the Olympic Games.
And think about all the people who made, props and costumes and all the stuff that you see, all the grand, illusions and stuff that you see during these opening ceremonies. And, there's always like an artistic flair and all, especially the home country always has like their unique sort of artistic avenue that they put on full display to show off their country and their traditions and whatnot. And like all that's wiped out basically. I mean, I'm sure some of the people involved will be considered VIP and they're not going to just trot the athletes out there without any grandeur, but it's not going to be what it typically is. That's what we're looking at right now.
Isn't it the halftime of the Super Bowl? Mm-hmm. Isn't it basically Mardi Gras and whatever else you want to put together times 1,000?
Super Bowl halftime show.
If you took the Super Bowl halftime show and then made that 2 hours long.
Well, multiplied it by 5, as far as the number of people involved, if not 10, with all the extra. But I mean, think about how much money Japan's going to lose on this thing. Like that's what sucks for them is you get this bid, you're like, oh my gosh, what a blessing. Yeah, there's a lot of hard work we got to put in, and you got to make sure facilities are right and all of that. But you know that the payoff is going to be all of this attention on your country, all of this travel, all this money pouring in, from the Olympic Village and beyond, and they're going to spend all this money to have the games, and they're not going to get much return on that, Like, I know it's not the U.S.'s issue or Russia's issue or Antigua and Barbuda's issue, but, Japan is really kind of screwed on this whole deal. Mm-hmm. I mean, you would think the day that was announced, it was like one of the greatest moments of those organizers' lives, and now it's turned into, the worst nightmare possible.
Yeah, and they've had to do this twice. So they had this set up to go, although there was a few more months in advance when they shut it down last spring. But also, then you come back a year later, and it looks like it's going to be a go. And then here we go as we get closer.
I really feel for the people of Japan, too. I mean, having, this is a big event that gets to, that's the thing about the Olympics. You get to kind of show yourself off. And Japan, whenever they've hosted Olympic events, has been fantastic.
Yeah, and I've said for a long time, Japan's near the top of my list of places I would love to go and spend a few days. But apparently, based on this article I just saw, no fans at the Tokyo Olympics will lead to at least $800 million in ticket sales losses.
Damn.
So $800 million just from ticket sales. That's not counting food,
that money
merchandise.
has to be returned, right? You have to give that back to whoever bought tickets?
I don't know. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I guess you got to return that money. So, yeah, they're already calculating. So there's nearly $1 billion just in the ticket sales, not to mention all of the other things that come with fans being in attendance. Like I said, food, board, travel, all those things. If you're an Uber driver in Japan, you're thinking, I'm going to make thousands and thousands of dollars, and now you're going to be shuttling a person here and there, but there's not going to be many people around the games itself. So, yeah, that's a bummer for that country.
Mike George on Twitter, should be on our text line, 254-339-1122. No, they said yesterday that due to the rise of COVID, no one would be allowed. It used to, remember, it was going to be 50%, and I wondered why would it not be better than that, and then now it's 0%. And you mentioned the props, the pageantry, the dresses, the outfits, the culture of what is a beautiful, beautiful country in Japan. I was fortunate to live there for 4 years, and I was looking forward to seeing what they were going to display during the Olympic Games. Go ahead.
No, I was just thinking, I wonder why Japan's having such a hard time with this. I wonder if it's people just not getting the vaccination or what, because I would think that country would have been, especially with this looming over their heads and the way that the Japan people or Japanese people typically are, I would have thought that this would have been like no problem.
I thought they, Israel has apparently handled the pandemic better than anyone in the world. Israel and New Zealand. I thought Japan would be just like that.
Yeah.
I mean, the way that that people in Japan, and I don't know this, but they're not as politically divided as people in other parts of the world. It's not like England or here, or, where everything is, well, who told you to get this? Was it a Republican or Democrat? That's depending on your answer, and depending on where I lean, that's where I'm going to do. So they don't really have this much strife as we do. So I thought maybe, I agree with you, Craig. I'm really surprised. I'm wondering what the reason for the huge spike has been.
Yeah, I'm trying to find that out. Apparently,
go ahead.
No, this is from I don't know. This is from a couple months ago. Apparently, they were slow rolling it out, but I feel like that's pretty much every country in the world has been slow rolling the vaccine out. So I don't know.
So this is a story, the rescheduled 2020 Olympic Games in Tokyo. The budget for Tokyo 2020 had been pegged at $12.6 billion in U.S. currency. Also, it has been reported the actual cost could be twice that much. Japan originally forecast it would spend $7.3 billion in United States currency on the games when bidding to host them began back in 2013. That's another thing. You start, it's kind of like NCAA tournament venues and stuff like that. This doesn't Super Bowls or 3, 5, 6, 8 years in advance. But
so apparently, not only did they have a slow rollout like most everybody did, trying to wrap their arms around the whole thing to begin with, but when Pfizer came out with their test or whatever, Japan waited, which I don't blame them for. You don't want to just take something just immediately right away, but they apparently waited, and what that did is they did additional testing and whatnot before just, throwing the vaccine to the wolves, basically, and that took them another couple months. So the time that they could have been rolling it out, they instead waited and researched it a bit more, it sounds like, and lost a couple of months of time, and you wonder if, maybe that – I get it, though. They were being precautionary. I'd rather my government be looking out for me rather than going, screw it, we'll just give it to them and we'll host the Olympics. I appreciate and respect that, but it very well could have led to this situation we're in now.
Yep, it's unfortunate. NBA Finals last night. Phoenix up 2-0.
Yeah.
And dominate Milwaukee. And, one other note. Y'all remember the name Ryan Pugh?
Yes. Yep, he was the Baylor O-line coach until he wasn't.
Like for a day.
For like a day.
He was the former Troy offensive coordinator who Baylor, Dave Aranda, hired to be the offensive line coach. And then the picture from many years ago flashed up about him sitting on the front of a car with what appeared to be a date or a girl in a black face picture where his face was painted black, and Baylor then backed away, rescinded the offer. The picture was from back in 2010. He apologized. He has been hired now to join the staff at Southern University.
So that's funny, right? I mean, for a guy who got, somewhat blacklisted for that picture, I mean, Southern is a predominantly...
It's an HBCU.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's an HBCU, just cut to the chase. So that's interesting for a guy who people lambasted. I felt really sorry for him, actually, during that whole deal because I do think people change and grow. I think what he did was stupid, obviously. But, we don't give young people any benefit of the doubt now. It's like if you did something stupid when you're 16, when you're 35, you can get called to the wolves for that. And I think that's kind of ridiculous, depending on what we're talking about. No doubt what he did was dumb. Like, no doubt. Well, he should have been taught better. But, like, he got dragged and had to relive that, like, 7 years later and get dragged back through it again. I felt kind of bad for the guy.
The benefit that the three of us have that – and Craig, for you and I, we're the last generation that can say this, the very last one. But no one, like maybe one person at a party had a camera, and you had to take it to a guy to get the pictures developed. But the generation of Jack, Emma, Hayden, and Armstrong, everywhere you go, everything's on camera. So the stupidest moment of your life, of goofing around, thinking you're not going to hurt anybody, and doing something that is immature and misinformed and all that, which you'd like to learn from, and somebody could tell you from, will get captured and it lives on the internet forever. And we didn't have to, and I'm not saying that, all of us did things like that, but we've all done stupid things when you're in your youth that, like, when you find out after you're done, like, oh, that was immature, that was silly. But we had the room to grow, and no strangers could come up to me and go, how could you do that when you were 16? Well,
I actually remember a situation at like a party. It was a Halloween party in like early high school, I think. And a girl actually did like the blackface thing, and you'd be surprised back then that she had no idea that what she was doing was so offensive. Like, I know that sounds stupid to some people, but you also have to understand not everybody.
Been in the early 2000s, so that's even 10 years prior to Ryan Pugh.
Yeah, and so it's like, I know it sounds stupid in today's age to say that, but like, it wasn't malicious, and it wasn't like mocking, and it was like, I don't even remember what the intention was, but it wasn't like evil, it wasn't racist per se, but obviously it's a very racist act, and that person learned that very quickly and was like completely like, oh my God, I didn't realize, and just wasn't educated enough. And it wasn't, like I said, malicious. It was just a lack of education, and that happens sometimes, and obviously that's no excuse now. Like, you couldn't do that, but it was a different time, and for Ryan Pugh, I don't think he should never be able to coach football again. And so I'm glad that he's getting this opportunity, and he'll be able to. He looks like he's been able to show people along the way that he's about the right things, and I'm sure he'll show Southern that as well, and make up for past mistakes.
I think it's great that he's getting hired, and again, like you said, by historically black college program, and he could start his career all over again, and that's the best way to do it. Whether it was there or going to Auburn, wherever he would go, but I remember Phil Bennett on a phone call with me. He was pissed. And I'm not so sure how a lot inside the Baylor athletic department, how that like flew through the air, how that kind of like was like poof, and it was gone. And I hate it for Ryan Pugh. He learned a lesson. Good for him. He's back in coaching.
Well, I think more than Ryan Pugh learning a lesson, because I think he already learned that actually, and I think that was kind of the point. Was like, hey, I've already admitted to my mistakes, and I've changed since then. But like, it got rehashed all these years later. When he'd already, himself moved on personally. But, I mean, I'll say Baylor's the one that botched this whole thing as far as, like, the attention that was brought, because that should have been caught during the process, So maybe that shined a little light on a crack in the armor, so to speak, and a hire that got, public and ridiculed real quick because of what he did years ago. Just shouldn't have been made in the first place. But we talked to Mac about that back then, and it's all water under the bridge. But yeah, that was a mistake for sure.
Yeah, it was. It's 3:38. We'll have Grayson Grundhafer coming up in the next segment. Also today at 4, Hobby Howe in studio on Tailgating across the street across MLK from McLean Stadium, the Brazos Parking Tailgating location at 4. And then Don Truhl and Lawrence Elkins. We've shown bits and pieces of it. We did run the entire thing on an off day on Monday, but we'll run the entire interview today around 4:20 or so, all the way up until the end of the show before Paul's 5 at 5:55. Top 5 at 5:55.
So,
Jack, you need to start having a board up for a little, like a number every time I mess up the title.
So I was reading more about Japan, and apparently their culture is very wary of vaccines. So that's part of why the rollout was so slow. Apparently this goes back to the 90s, so much so that the government actually got rid of mandatory inoculations because of a court ruling that, basically the Japanese people got very paranoid about side effects with certain medicines. And so the government went so far as to just scrap mandatory inoculations. They stopped recommending the HPV vaccine because of people, alleging side effects. And so, that's apparently part of their culture is they're a bit wary of vaccination side effects, and that's why it's taken them a while.
You know what would be great is if we used to not have pharmaceutical, like most of the drugs that you see advertised on television, you're never going to take. I mean, you're never like you have them if you're going to. You have that specific disease, they don't need to be on television, and then they have all these side effects, so then people wonder about all these other things. Well, I mean, they have to list the side effects because it's a legal thing, but, I just wish they weren't on TV.
Yeah.
Who, what?
The prescription drugs
AstraZeneca. And
do you realize how much
I know how much money,
that's why.
That's why, but
it's
money is compromising our common sense. And so, like, you listen to these things, you're like, oh, is that all going to happen to me? Like, well I'm sorry, sir, you're not going to have ovarian cancer, so you can skip it.
Well, you should be smart enough to know that.
Yeah, but that's not you should be smart enough to know that. We live in America.
I know, but I saw the one the other day. It was about HIV. There's a pill or whatever dosage about HIV. If you don't have HIV, don't worry about it, or it's prevent HIV. So if you're in a particular type of situation where that could be a problem, then you at least know it's accessible, but you got to be smart enough.
But I think it leads into... I remember Propecia had a commercial, and it was one of the side effects was if you're pregnant or could become pregnant, don't handle a broken pill. So don't even pick up a broken pill. Like, that's a terrible side effect that could happen.
That's like a coral snake top.
I don't know what you're saying, though, is you listen to those commercials, and like then after they tell you all these great things it'll do for you, there's like 15 things that could happen that could kill you, and then people get that in their heads or whatever. But that's the story on Japan apparently, and why this has been slow going for them.
And we can look at things differently, but that's their country, that's their culture, that's how they've been brought up. Just like there's some things that we do or don't do that other countries are like, what? All right, let's come back with Grayson Grundhay for SicEm365.com. He's our recruiting analyst. Couple of text line messages. TJ, he wants to get your feedback eventually on McGregor and Poirier. That's Saturday night. We'll come back with that. You want to do that real quick? You got do a minute.
Or do you want to just come back with it?
We got Grayson.
Okay. I'll pick Conor. I was not impressed at all in the last fight between those two. And, honestly, TJ, it's as much hope as it is, like, really believing he's going to win this fight, if that makes sense. Made no bones about being disappointed in Conor from time to time with some of his actions, but I've always remained a huge fan because of the way he treated me in our very short interaction a few years ago. I'll never not like the guy because of that. Obviously, if he were to go on some murder spree, I'd be like, all right, screw Conor McGregor. But he hadn't gone that far. But he was very cool to me, and I'll never forget that. And where people get starstruck by, like, NFL people and stuff like that, I become kind of numb to that, and I'm not grateful for it. But to see Conor McGregor in the flesh and to meet him was like, that's an all-timer for me. So anyways, my fandom is clear, and my fandom's making me go with Conor in this fight because it's hoping that he's actually going to get back on track. And if he doesn't win this fight, then... I'm sure he'll still have some big money in his future, but it's just not going to be anywhere near the level of, what he was a couple years ago.
I hope he wins. I like him. He's a great personality, but I don't think he will. I didn't like the way he got hammered, even if he said he did not, he wasn't as focused as he needed to be. And that's not from someone who's an expert on the sport. It's just, I do enjoy watching him fight, but it's been a long time since he won a big fight. When we come back, Grayson Grundhay for SicEm365.com, recruiting analyst.
Y'all listen up. Let me tell you something about group meals from Rudy's Barbecue. It's got all you need for all the folks you gotta feed. Smoked meat, sides, and more. There's everything down to the tablecloth, just like the one that you see at the store. At a bridal shower, it's better than flowers. And a long business meeting, it'll pass the hours. It'll feed all the cousins at a family function. It's better than potluck at a church luncheon. Next time you need to feed 10 or more, call and order a Rudy's group meal.
Next in line.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
At Baylor University, students find their place to shine. They're faithful friends and inspirational leaders. They're championship teammates and independent thinkers. They're on the cutting edge of high tech and in the halls of history. If you want to make the world a brighter place, you can. And if you want to shine in your own way, you can. The spark you need is already inside you. Bring it to Baylor, where lights shine bright.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine has their easy-to-access drive-thru open and convenient and clean in-store location on the corner of Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street in Waco. Riverbend Liquor has the best and most extensive variety of craft beer selections in Waco, and Balcones Whiskey, including single malt, pot still, baby blue, rye, brimstone, and the all-new lineage in stock. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, family-owned and operated, and a hidden gem in Waco on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street. And find out more on Facebook and Instagram.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to SicEm365 Radio. It's time for our weekly segment with Grayson Grundhafer of SicEm365.com. Brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943.
All right, here we go. SicEm365 Radio. Grayson Grundhafer with us on SicEm365 Radio every Friday at around 3:45, unless he's at a wedding. He does a lot of those, Paul. Remind me of when I first met you, of those.
Yeah.
He's at that age.
There's a point in your life, and Grayson's at that age, where all your friends start to get married.
So, Grayson, it was a pretty good run. The official visits, the unofficial visits, whatever else. Your thoughts, you look back at the last month, and what would you say? How would you describe what Baylor's coaching staff accomplished?
Yeah, I mean, they accomplished a lot with what they were able to do with the 2 official visits. They were able to continue building on the relationships that they had already built throughout this entire cycle. And then once they got kids on campus, they were really able to sell Baylor's culture, that person over player mindset I think it's something that the players have really responded to, and recruits love it. They love what Dave Aranda has brought to the table from a recruiting side of things. So I think you're clearly seeing a vision that this staff has on the recruiting side of things as far as kind of their plans for the future and how they're going to build classes out and how they're going to hopefully get a top 25 class at some point. So I think we got to see that. I think we also saw, just kind of some of the forward thinking, I think, is another area I need to talk about a little bit. And the reason I bring that up is because Isaiah Crawford committed in the 2023 class to give them their first commit in that class. The ESPN Junior 300 came out yesterday, and Baylor's in great shape for, I'd probably say, 10 to 15 of those guys. And that's just a credit to them working really hard with those younger guys. And that's a big thing. You have to prepare for the future. It's not always just about the current recruiting class. And they've done a really good job of that. So, yeah, I mean, it's been a heck of a ride over the last, 3-4 weeks. And this staff, it seems like they're just going to continue to move forward and continue to build really good things. And, of course, the huge commitment over July 4th weekend when Hal Presley, the Auburn transfer, decided to transfer to Baylor after just 2 weeks at Auburn. So another big pickup there at a position of need. Baylor really needs some big wide receivers on the outside who can go win one-on-one matchups and go get the ball over the top of the defensive back. And Hal Presley can do that. And he was a guy who they had huge hopes for in the 2021 class. And obviously he ended up going to Auburn, regretted it. Now he's going to be at Baylor. And I think that's a huge addition as well.
So, Grayson, I asked you yesterday about Dare Rosenthal, and your estimation is that the Baylor staff didn't really get as far down the road with him eventually, and that's why you went to Kentucky.
My estimation is that Baylor did not officially offer Dare Rosenthal. I obviously, Colt and I are still trying to figure out everything that went into that. Obviously, recruiting can be a weird situation sometimes, and so for some people that think Dare Rosenthal is a no-brainer pickup, well, that's very true from the football side of things. But you also have to remember, you're trying to build a culture. And, if guys don't fit that culture, then maybe they're not worth it at times. And obviously he left LSU under kind of weird circumstances. And I think at the end of the day, things just weren't cleared up enough or quickly enough for Baylor to really make the push that they needed to in order to land him. So he ends up at Kentucky, which was the program that I believe was the first to offer him when he entered the portal. They've done a good job with offensive linemen, so I think that appealed to Dare as well. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think this is one of those situations where I still stand by the fact that I think if Baylor had made a really strong push for him, I think he would have ended up being a Bear. I think that should tell you kind of where the staff's mindset was at in this particular situation.
Grayson, Baylor voted 8th in the Big 12 preseason poll. Is that about where you view them, or do you see it differently?
I do see it differently, to be honest. And the main reason I see it differently is because of the schedule that they have in front of them. I think Baylor has a very favorable schedule. I think things line up for them really, really well compared to some of the other teams in the conference. So I personally, I think in my preseason poll, I think I have them at 6. But, I understand why some people have them at 8. I do believe Kansas State is probably getting a little too much attention, in my opinion. I think that Baylor will probably be better than them again this year, as they beat them last year, even though the season went, they weren't better than them. But I think Baylor's got a good shot at being better than them. And I also think they're going to be right in the thick of things with teams like West Virginia, TCU, Oklahoma State, Texas. I think there's really just a big glob in the Big 12 that I think is going to kind of they're just going to eat each other alive, which they do every single year. But I think Baylor could come out in a pretty favorable spot just because of the way the schedule sets up compared to some of the other programs.
Grayson, I saw Jaden Gibson, the wide receiver from, I think, Winter Haven, Florida, who's obviously an elite player, an Under Armour All-American type player. And I saw the list, and there's Florida, Miami, Florida State, Tennessee, South Carolina, Georgia, Auburn, and then there's the Baylor logo. I don't know what happened with him. I know Baylor, has been close with him. It's been a good recruitment, but how much does it help? I'm not into perception much, but how much does it help when they're in the middle of that mix?
It can only help, right? I'm not going to sit here and say that recruits are really, really paying attention to the fact that Baylor is in there. But I do think, especially in the state of Florida, it's probably a bigger deal to see the Baylor logo, to see Baylor actually making an attempt to land guys in Florida. We saw Matt Rule and specifically Evan Cooper do a great job in that Florida area at times. Tyquan Thornton, they were recruited guys in the area as well. And it's hard to pull guys out of Florida, obviously, with Florida State, and Miami there. But I will say, I think some of those guys slip through the cracks at times, especially when those programs fill up their class or maybe they're a little bit down. You can have an opportunity. And I think that's what Baylor's done with Jaden. They were able to get one of his official visits. He's taken 3 up to this point. I think he'll probably take 2 more. I would be shocked if Georgia doesn't get one of them. He seems to be really, really excited about that offer. So we'll see. I would say I think Baylor's in his top 5. Simple fact that he took an official visit probably puts them, kind of right there in the running. But I do think at the end of the day, he's going to be a tough one to land regardless. He's one of the best receivers in the country, 6'6", 185 pounds, just kind of one of those guys that you don't find a lot of. So, yeah. A very, very good prospect, and it's really cool to see Baylor in the running for a guy of that caliber who is out of the state. And, I'm not sure that has the biggest impact, but I think it definitely puts some eyeballs on the program.
So is this now kind of a down period? They're going to Big 12 Media Days next week. We'll be in Arlington for that. Is this kind of not so much the word or term dead period, but is there anything you expect to pop anytime soon?
Yeah, so I guess I have a few notes on that, I would say. So they're at 19 commits right now in the 2022 class. We do know that Texas High defensive end / jack linebacker Derek Brown is the guy who's making his decision probably at the end of July. And then Tenaha linebacker Jeremy Patton is also going to make his decision at the end of July. So, yeah, there's a little bit of time in between there before they make a decision, but those are 2 4-star guys who Baylor is absolutely in the thick of things for. There's been a lot of speculation that they're going to go to the same school. I can't really confirm that, but I do know that they are both looking pretty hard at Texas and Baylor. Patton has a few others on his list as well. So that's going to be absolutely squarely on the staff's mind, and I think on everyone's mind is what decision are those 2 guys going to make. So that's a little bit down the road. But I would say in the near future, there are 2 things to keep an eye on. Baylor currently does still have a spot open. And the reason I say that is because, yes, they had a spot for Dare Rosenthal if, he decided to end up at Baylor and if they decided to recruit him hard. They had a spot for him. And so what I mean by that is there's an opportunity here in the next month where they could still possibly land someone from the transfer portal. I've kind of been beating the drum that they're going to take a tackle. They're going to take a tackle. Haven't been able to really find one. And so we'll see if someone else enters the portal that they go after to try to land and shore up the offensive line a little bit. And then the second storyline is Lake High School out of Mississippi. Calvin Dinkins, the big defensive lineman, he took his official visit to Baylor on the 25th. He recently decommitted from Southern Mississippi, which is the school that he chose over Baylor initially when he committed. Took his official, decided to decommit 2 weeks later, and now he's a free man. He's going around looking at different places, unofficial visits potentially coming up. But I would say I think Baylor's in great shape for him, and I could see him making a decision possibly relatively soon. I think that Baylor's in a great spot with him.
Last thing, Grayson, there are some players as Baylor gets higher level type commits or in the mix with some of them, but there's a lot of drama queens, and there's some that sure do like to kind of just push the envelope a little bit. How is this staff with players like that?
I think we're seeing kind of where they're at with things that potentially happen off the field, but drama queens, things like that, I would say that this staff is going to do their due diligence. They're going to try to meet every player that they recruit individually and then figure out if that's a player that fits their culture. Because you can have drama queens who, their whole goal is to kind of have momentum in their recruitment or to have, the spotlight on them, and then they don't really perform. But you can have other ones who like that, but are also really, really good football players, and it doesn't matter at all. It doesn't affect them at all. But you got to be able to separate those things. And I think that staff is pretty good at evaluating character, and I believe that they're great at building relationships. So if you talk to a prospect long enough, I think you can kind of figure out their personality, what they're about. Are they about the team, or are they about I? And I think that's the big separating factor. When they get to Baylor, does this staff think that this is going to be a guy who worries about himself over the team, or a guy who, likes his skill set, likes the spotlight on him, but is all about the team? That's the big separating factor, in my opinion, and one that I think the staff really, really looks at.
Thank you, Grayson. Every Friday, 3:45, Grayson Grunhafer, Sic'em365.com, the Bearcast with Craig on Tuesdays, and then also his constant analysis and information flow in the Sic'em365.com for recruiting. When we come back, tailgating options across MLK at McLean Stadium, the Brazos parking, next on Sic'em365 Radio.
Car has the trucks, man. They have the one for you. Crew cab, short or long bed, silver, black or blue. Texas size selection, great prices too. Richard Carr, he has the truck for you. Carr has the trucks, man. He has the truck you need. If you want the best truck, you want a GMC. Texas size selection, great prices too. Richard Carr, they have the truck for you.
In Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, everyone. This is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like mortgage lending, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physician of Baylor Athletics. Our doctors specialize in the diagnosis and treatment of any and all sports-related injuries. Celebrating over a decade of service in Central Texas, our doctors are equipped to handle a wide range of issues, whether it's your foot or ankle, orthopedic spine care, your hand or wrist, knee and shoulder pain, or if you're in need of our arthritis or total joint clinic. Come see us at the new Baylor Scott and White Ted and Sue Getterman Sports and Orthopedic Center. Trusted doctors at Baylor Trust, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics. Our goal is to get you back in the game.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and 2-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to SicEm365 Radio.
Over the middle, he has Ebner in for a touchdown.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go, this 4 o'clock hour. In the next segment, our lengthy sit-down interview with two icons of Baylor athletics in Lawrence Elkins and Don Truel. Paul's top 5 at 5:55 at, of course, that time. If you have ever been to any of the tailgating from the days at Floyd Casey to, of course, now at McLean Stadium, you know about the reputation of Hobby Howe and what he brings to the table, or what he brings to the smoker, or what he brings when it comes to atmosphere. And he joins us now in studio to discuss the tailgating options on game day across MLK at the Brazos parking. And last year was your first year to do that. They made some changes. There's more changes as well. And there was, I wasn't sure, but there you were. You were never going to miss that opportunity. So let's discuss the options at Brazos parking. And you've moved over across the street, as have many others. What was it like for you a year ago?
Actually, David, it was really good. We moved over prior to knowing that Baylor was going to cancel all their tailgating. We had no idea when we moved that was going to happen. Fortunately, we did make that move, and we've got a great spot right next to SicEm365, right on MLK. It's really no farther for us to walk to the stadium than it was when we were in our old spot, which was pretty darn close.
Kind of like going to the Farrell Center compared to the new Coliseum or whatever they're going to call it, right?
Probably.
Had to get that in there.
Probably.
Had to get spacious, roomy, atmosphere, everything pretty much.
It's very spacious. We've got so much room there. We can park right by our tailgate, which is something that you can only do at Brazos parking. And I don't believe they're allowing that across the street. But we've got plenty of room, and what I like a lot about it is that we've got a tent, of course, but when it rains, there's crushed granite around the tent instead of grass, which turns into mud pretty quickly. So it's a much cleaner environment. We've got water and electricity and cable, and the guys over there really take care of us. They're very, very good tenants or landlords, I guess I should say.
So you can still go full tilt. You have the tailgate to end all tailgates hobby.
Well, we did not slow down last year, if that's what you're asking.
That's what I am asking, yeah.
We had every amenity that we have had in the past, added a few things, and honestly, it's except for the crowd. The crowd was obviously much smaller last year because they weren't allowing a lot of folks in. I think some people were afraid to come out and mix because of COVID. I will say this, we probably had about 150 on average at every tailgate that we had, and there was not one case of COVID reported out of anybody that came to a tailgate. So we were proud of that.
How excited are you to see full tailgating again?
I'm very excited. We really didn't miss it last year.
Yeah.
So I'm real excited, though, because there will be more people.
Right.
And more of our friends will be able to come. And, if you don't have tickets to a Baylor game, it's hard to go out when you can watch it on TV. So we'll be full tilt, as you say, Paul, this coming year with a full crowd, and we'll probably have, if it's like year before last, we'll probably have about 350 people.
All right, last year, because we park very close to where you are based on MLK with the media parking, there's probably 50, 60, 80 cars that are parked in that section. You guys are right across the fence.
Right.
So I went over there one night, and it was kind of winding down because we did post-game whatever. And do you have a new toy last year that joined the tailgating circuit? A new, big, larger smoker?
The smoker.
Yeah, you got a new one. What's the story behind that one? Because I thought the other one you had was pretty good.
Well, the other one I had was great until I got this one, and so now that other one stays at home. That's my home smoker now. But I was helping a friend, a very good friend, at the Byron Nelson. He's members of the Salesmanship Club. And I would go up and help him smoke meat for the Salesmanship Club at their Marshall's tent every year. And I borrowed that smoker a couple of times for a couple of weddings that I did. And the last one I borrowed it for, he brought it down and gave it to me. So I've got a 21 or 22 foot smoker now that I take to Baylor games, which is much nicer, cook a lot more on it at one time.
How big was the other one?
The other one was 14 feet.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, because it wasn't like you say that like it was like 4 feet long. No, it was you've gone from large to extra large.
This is an extra large.
You've supersized.
Yeah, this is one that you can be proud to pull into any tailgate.
Brazos Parking is a private parking venue with tailgating across from McLean Stadium on MLK. There are spaces available, RV spaces. Usually those are sold out. I'm not saying that they are. I'm sure that if you want to get in touch with them, you can go to brazosparking.com, by the way, on the website, and it has all the information, all the contact information that you need, brazosparking.com. And it's before you know it, we're talking less than 2 months.
That's right.
What is today, the 9th? And they play on the 11th of September, so 2 months or so away from this coming, in fact, this weekend. The first game's at Texas State and then home for the game the second week in September. So someone wanted me to ask you, if you had to give up pork or beef and you could never go back to the other one you gave up, which would it be?
I'm not sure I want to answer that.
I mean, that's why we're recording. You are.
I'm being recorded. You know what? I would give up. Is this to eat myself or is? Oh, yeah. I'd give up pork.
So you'd continue to, well, because you don't want to give up steaks and stuff, do you?
No. Well, look, of the many great things that Hobby makes, I mean, the prime rib is the signature.
Yeah.
I mean,
I haven't had one of those in a while.
Be like asking Emerald to stop saying "bam." I mean, you can't do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I would give up pork in a heartbeat compared to that.
That's right.
Yeah, and so, okay, that was a question that came from the site. They were asking me about that. When do you start on tailgating? Let's say the game's at, well, of course, is at 11. That's the earliest kickoffs. Or let's say this at 11 o'clock game. Mm-hmm. When do you start that baby up at home? Or is this one now already there? Because you used to drive it from your driveway and take it to the stadium.
No, I still bring it from home. This won't fit in the driveway, so I started on the street. But, I like to have the first round of meat. We do 2 rounds, but the first round of meat ready about 2 hours prior to game time. So whenever the game time is, and some of that takes 5 or 6 hours. So 5 or 6 hours prior to that, I would start the fire.
All right, you got the first game is on, of course, is Texas Southern, but maybe the best home schedule ever, with Brigham Young as is a non-conference game, but with Oklahoma, Texas, Iowa State, and then, of course, also Texas Tech at home for the first time in forever, along with West Virginia as well. So, I mean, probably as good a home schedule, I think, that Baylor's had in quite some time. Maybe there's been when they've had both Oklahoma, Texas, whatever. I think that's happened. But to then add Brigham Young and then to add Iowa State, who's on fire right now, or at least the expectations with them, and then the Texas Tech game, which has been neutral until last year in Lubbock.
Right. Yeah, this is a strong schedule year for Baylor, and I guess it's, unless they realign or something screwy happens, it's going to be an every other year schedule. Sans Brigham Young, but hopefully they'll substitute somebody else in there that's pretty strong. But this is a tremendous schedule, and whoever comes out to the games is going to see great teams play and fantastic games. So it's going to be a great year for Baylor football. 245
reserved numbered individual parking spaces. Again, some of these are already locked in. 132 tailgate spaces with power cable. 39 RV parking spaces, water power cable. That's always pretty cool. And then, of course, there's corporate spaces, on-site management, security, direct TV, technical staff on lighting, for games at night, and also the food truck and also Market Courtyard. And then we, SicEm365, will be there as well. We're usually doing the pregame here inside the studio, home or away. And then, of course, a lot of guys, we know where Ashley and Brian usually are.
Right. Yeah, they're right next door to us.
Yeah.
And so it's a fantastic atmosphere. And, you mentioned the lighting. This is one of the most safe tailgate areas I think that you can be in, because there is personnel, there's lighting all over the place, and so we feel very safe when we're there.
By the way, the Texas Tech game 2 years ago was at Waco. I forgot about that. How can I forget the butt fumble game, right? Thanks, Mike, for reminding me of that. They played that butt fumble game that got the controversy.
That's right.
Texas Tech fans are still furious about that. All right, anything else? I know there's different prices. We'll let Brazos Parking deal with that if you contact with them at brazosparking.com.
Listen, it's easy in, easy out. It really is. It's a very easy place to get in, and they've done, I'll say this, they've done everything they could to accommodate us. They have been super, super to deal with. And I'm just tickled that we made the move when we did, and that we made the move to where we did.
Yeah, and then people don't like change. Some people don't like change. Change can be very, very good. And then obviously there's change that you get stuck and you're used to whatever, and you had that location before that was kind of like right there in the middle of it all, over near the on the island, so to speak, or
right.
whatever. And so this is your second year. There's a lot of changes with tailgating going on at McLean Stadium with
right.
With their new policy and the new group that's handling them, tailgate guys. So brazosparking.com is one of the options, and it's right across the street. And you're right, it's right where we are, basically, and walking distance to the stadium, no matter where you are in that large area that is kind of a huge rectangle across the street.
That's right. That's right. And like I said before, we walked no further to get to our seats than we did when we were tailgating on Baylor property. And we had a very good spot on Baylor property. So in fact, we were very close to you guys over there as well.
Yeah, you were.
That was why it was a good spot.
That must be right.
Yeah, we would wrap up the pregame show and just accidentally bump into you going the wrong direction.
Well, see, here's the thing. I could look from where we were and see when things were ready. So I knew,
Paul,
all right, here we go.
Paul, you knew exactly. And we would sneak, and on occasion, like, and John Maddox and all those guys from Edward Jones, they're across in Brazos Parking now as well. And he'd snuggle up to us a little breakfast burrito or
right.
maybe a little Sprite or something that he would bring along the way. So there's a lot of people that have moved across the street.
Tomato juice as well. He loves tomato juice.
And lettuce sticks and stuff like that, and olives.
All I saw was clear that he was bringing over to you guys.
Man, thank you very much. It's so much fun. Do you feel pressure when I know you've done this for a long time, but it's like with anything else, you have now created a standard of what people expect from you. Have you ever driven away from a game, whatever time it starts, and go, you know what, we didn't have our A game today?
No, I think that everybody enjoys themselves, and that's the main point. It's a great place to meet, and we've got a good atmosphere, and everybody's happy when they leave. And so, by those standards, it's always a success. And, if you're giving away free food, people find it hard to complain.
Yeah. You get donations?
No. The moment you start taking money is the moment that people feel like they can criticize something.
Oh, right.
There you go.
There you go. That's a great question. Yeah, and a lot of times there are those who have their tailgate setups or whatever, and a lot of times, you're right, there's a lot of money and time and effort and the cleanup and all that goes with it. Hobby, thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Hobby Hal, longtime tailgater, as good as it gets. Brazosparking.com. Brazosparking.com if you want more information about a site, a location, a possibility of being inside the atmosphere at Brazosparking.com, where Hobby will be and where SicEm365 Radio will be as well.
I have a little Lady Bears news. The program has announced that Kendra Gillespie of Norman, Oklahoma, has signed with Baylor Lady Bears. She's a 6'2" forward, and she's going to be the only true freshman on the roster for Nikki Collin next year. She was 58th overall in ranking by ESPN Hoop Girls, and she was the number 10 ranked forward on the Hoop Girls Top 100 for the class of 2021. Colin cited her ability to handle the ball and finish strong at the rim, said she'll add depth to the front court, and she's a great person and student off the course, likes to teach people about the game, or teach young people about the game off the court. So, Kendra Gillespie of Norman High will be the only true freshman on the Lady Bears roster next year, and she apparently played for her mother at Harding Charter Prep. And was a member of a couple of AAU teams. So
I'll tell you what, just looking at some of her film and her size, she kind of reminds me a little bit of the possibility of a Hannah Gusters as a freshman when she came in, of course, from I think it was Irving MacArthur, who's now at LSU. So they got somebody inside Queen Egbo, obviously Melissa Smith, and now Gillespie, along with what Caitlin Bickle will bring to the table on occasion among some others. They had Miriam Dowdy. She decommitted, ended up at Arkansas when the coaching transition. All right, for Hobby Hal, thanks to Grayson Grunhafer as well. Trayvon Bromley from Gatorade, we appreciate. Unstoppable, the trailer. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, also Emma, Hayden, and Jack. Armstrong Sims, we're back with more in a minute. Don True and Lawrence Elkins on SicEm365 Radio.
Boozers is the wedding ring store and more. If you're ready to get engaged or already married and want to upgrade your wife's ring for a special anniversary, Boozers is the place to go. With the largest selection of premier quality diamond engagement rings and wedding rings in Central Texas. They have 7 cases with over 300 styles of rings from top designers like Natalie Kay. Choose from yellow, white, or rose gold, plus beautiful top quality loose diamonds. With an in-house jewelry, they can also custom make anything you want. Bring in a picture or drawing and let Boozers create your one-of-a-kind pendant or ring. They can even use some of your old gold and diamond jewelry to create something new. At Boozers, you'll find a great selection of quality timepieces, and Boozers is the place for expert watch maintenance and repairs too. They specialize in expert Rolex watch repair for fine jewelry, watches, custom work, and more. Go to Boozers on Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Boozers, the wedding ring store and more.
With more than 160,000 alumni worldwide and counting, the Baylor family is growing. And through the university's expanded Baylor alumni program, the family is growing closer. With hundreds of local volunteers planning events in cities and towns around the country, you can gather with fellow Bears no matter where you are. So, get connected, get something started, get involved, and make plans to get together with Baylor alumni. Visit us at baylor.edu/alumni.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness was built to help give you a chance to enjoy elite tennis facilities and also remain fit or reshape your body. Now Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness has gone through its own physical changes. There are 7 large flat screens stretched across the main and improved weight room with Wi-Fi available and their own app to enjoy news, business, weather, or sports channels. The beautiful sound of active treadmills and elliptical machines, group exercise classes throughout each day, a new ballet bar for bar classes, a new look lounge and bar with beer and wine with more large flat screens available. Touchless water fountains outside each spacious men's and women's locker rooms, showers, sauna, and whirlpool. Upgraded PA system throughout the world-class tennis courts and lessons for adults and juniors. I promise you'll look and feel better. You just need to walk through the front door. Also, Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness with personal trainers Christy London and Randall Corley. 40-plus group exercise classes, including twice-a-week boot camp. So start today, not tomorrow, at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
At Marco's Pizza, get craveable pizza made the Italian way with dough made from scratch, an original sauce recipe, 3 fresh signature cheeses, and premium toppings you love, served hot and safe. Right now, you can get unlimited medium one-topping pizzas for just $6.99 each. Why stop at just one? Order with your app or at marcos.com for curbside, carryout, or delivery today. Marco's, pizza lovers get it.
Welcome back to SicEm365 Radio. Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Do it today by searching SicEm365 on YouTube.
Well, this is what we love to do. Look back, reminisce, think about the incredible legends of Baylor athletics. And on occasion, we'll bring you, of course, Grant Taft was our debut. And today, we're joined by two great Baylor legends, college football Hall of Famers, Don Truhl and Lawrence Elkins in studio at SicEm365. Man, it's great to have you, both of you. I want to start with Coach Bridgers. How far ahead of his time was he compared to where college football was at that time, and really what it took to finally a lot of people understand you can throw the football like that?
You want me to answer first, Lawrence? I'll answer that. Yeah, that was one reason I came to Baylor. I grew up in Oklahoma City, Southeast High School, and our high school coach was kind of ahead of his time. We ran the spread, which became shotgun formation and all, besides split T and all. And I threw in high school 234 passes, which is a lot for 10 games in high school back in 1958. And I was looking at a couple other schools, and then I heard John Bridgers from Baltimore. Johnny Unitas was always my idol, and said they were going to throw the ball, put in the pro offense at Baylor. So I came, and we put the pro offense in. Probably in Raymond, Lawrence can dwell on this more with Raymond Berry, since he was on the coach where John Bridgers was the offensive line coach when they won the world championship back in, I guess it's 58. And he came to our every spring training while I was in school, as well as Lawrence. I think he came the same way. And I probably learned more about the passing game from Raymond than any coach or anybody. And we were very wide open, and I think probably more than anything, we use an audible system, which that I was very comfortable with it. And I would say I probably audibled. Lawrence can say what he thinks, but I think 60% of the time, maybe more, we audible. We come to the line of scrimmage and we saw what they were giving us, and we had a play that we could run that would take advantage of what alignment they were in. And you said you started out with the question about how much ahead of his time. I think 50 years at least.
You were at Brownwood High School under the great Gordon Wood. Darrell Royal wanted you to come to Texas, and yet he thought, Gordon Wood, that Baylor would be a better fit for you as well because of exactly what he was talking about?
Yes, he absolutely did. Darrell Royal just showed up at my house the weekend before with half his coaching staff, and I was leaning toward Texas. And Gordon on that Monday called me in his office, and he said, "Son, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but here's the circumstances. You're not going to get much bigger, and you're not going to play defensive end. And if you're lucky, you'll catch 10 passes your whole career at Texas." He says, "There's a coach at Baylor that has a wide open offense that I think you're suited to. And don't you tell Royal I said this, because we're good friends, but you think about going to Baylor." And I changed my mind and went to Baylor.
Well, and of course, the rest is history, both in the College Football Hall of Fame and many other things. And we're going to get to certain moments, games, the good, the bad, and sometimes the disappointing. But you told me, Lawrence, about what Coach Truhl, or Don Truhl would do, basically was almost a coach in the field, that in the huddle, he would change the plays, not just the audible at the line of scrimmage, but you told me that he knew the offense as well as anybody.
I mean, they'd send in somebody with a play, and he kind of looked at him, looked at the huddle, and he said, "Well, here's what we're going to call." I don't know if Coach Bridgers knew that, he might get a little livid, but Don was that smart, though, and he might have been the only quarterback in the country at the time in college that was able to do his own thing, about play calling.
Don, what do you think then when you see quarterbacks today with these wristbands? At every level. There's a big thing, they flip it. I understand maybe the offenses, I don't know if they're more complex now than ever before, but what are your thoughts about that?
Well, it's the changing times. There's a lot of things that have changed from when Lawrence and I both played, which some of them I agree with and some of them I don't agree with. But once they put it in, everybody uses it. I think it's unfortunate a lot of college kids coming out that don't call their own plays, and I don't know if there is hardly any that calls their own plays that are in any of the big conferences nowadays. And it just, like I say, I learned a lot from Raymond Berry, and of course from our coaches. Chuck Purvis was a quarterback coach, and it's just advantage. It's just like defensive backs and offensive linemen blocking, how much harder it was to block back when we played. An offensive lineman's hands couldn't leave his chest. And, nowadays they can push him and do everything. It's a much easier game on people that play, whether it's the offensive line, whether it's the receivers, because the defensive backs can't bump and run them as much as they used to could do. And it's just, it's a different game. It really is.
I had somebody tell me the other day that the two of you made watching and following and being at Baylor football fun again.
I don't know. I was out there taking a beating. I don't know how much fun it was, especially when Don threw the ball about 15 feet over my head. But I'm kidding you. Anyway.
You brought that up to me.
Yeah.
Was it TCU? The TCU game, it was like 28-26, and you're on their 25-yard line.
Yeah,
and you guys had some amazing moments, but that was not well over your head. That was just, you remember that pass, Don?
Remember that last out, and we were inside the 20, and I missed it on 4th down.
Well, I don't think I threw it high. I don't think it.
No, I didn't say that. I said it barely grazed my fingertips.
I do remember one ball that I did throw high, which I hate to remember. It's when we played Texas, and we may get into that later. But
well, we can get that out of the way.
It was our last drive. We were behind 7-0, and we had. If you can ever watch the film. We went up and down the field. We never could get it in the end zone. We outgained them in yardage, et cetera, and then we were able to get a fumble late in the game and moved down to the 20-yard line, and we had like 4th down, and I had a drop back pass, and James Ingram was another receiver, and which was an advantage. Elkins was so good and made the defense so conscious of him they'd usually double team him or roll to his side. And it'd leave the other receivers one-on-one, and Ingram was one-on-one, and Ingram was a converted quarterback from Odessa that played under Fry, and then came to Baylor with Coach Fry, and he was in the end zone waving his arms, and he was wide open, and I jerked it back to throw it, and Staley Faulkner was a defensive lineman. They had two great defensive linemen, and Staley Faulkner on one side and Scott Appleton on the other. And Faulkner jumped up, and I kind of double clutched it and stepped up, and with my momentum stepping up and threw it, I threw it about 3 feet over Ingram's head. And Jim Hudson was a safety. And, of course, I became friends with him later. He played with the Jets and all. He's not with us anymore, unfortunately. But every time I'd see him, he'd say, I had him covered. He wouldn't have. I'd have got it. He was 10 yards away from him. But that's the one pass I remember probably more than anything.
That was Duke Carlisle who intercepted the pass.
Yeah.
Lawrence, did you slip on that play, or were you open, or you just?
I was open for a while, but he closed the gap really quickly. I don't know. He's a heck of an athlete. People don't realize that. And he was on it in a hurry. And another thing that we heard later is Ken Hodge at the line of scrimmage, our tight end, and he was a good one. That was Duke's boy. It was his man. And Hodge slipped down when the ball was snapped to him, and so that gave Carlisle a chance to look for somebody else.
Yeah, they had worked all week. I talked to a couple of guys, Hudson one of them being, and the rule was if your man didn't come out for any reason, know where Elkins is and go to wherever that area is and help double team him with whoever is on him. And sure enough, that's what happened. Hodge got bumped and knocked down, slipped down, and Carlisle immediately turned and ran. But if you look at a picture, there's a picture. I never saw it. I saw the picture. I didn't see it in the dining hall at UT. That was on the wall forever in there of the picture where Lawrence's hands are like this. the ball is right up here, and Duke Carlisle is short of him, and his hands are in between the ball and Lawrence's hands. So it was a hell of a play.
They won the national championship that year.
First one.
Somebody asked me this. I put up a note on the SicEm365 in the premium section. If there's a question you could ask Lawrence or Don, what would it be? One of them was, had you scored, let's say you caught it, 7-6, you go for 2?
I would have probably, if we had a timeout and huddled, we didn't have that great a field goal kicker, okay? Extra point kicker, whatever you want to call him. I think we'd have gone for 2. Because earlier, before when Lawrence, I believe, was a freshman, I was a redshirt, or maybe he wasn't there yet. I got to make the trip to the Gator Bowl. The Bridgers team played in '60. We played Florida. And it was the end of the game, and we scored, and it was 7-6, and they went for 2. And Ronnie Goodwin played the position that Lawrence played, and Ronnie ran a 6-yard out, and Ronnie Stanley threw the ball and hit him in the hands, and it just went right through his hands. So I feel like that's probably what we'd have done, and that's probably what we would have ran. But, history is history. Because of the fact Texas had recruited you and wanted you, did that make that even more difficult? You had a chance to beat them? I don't know. I didn't even think about it that way. I remember we lined up for an introduction before the game, and Olin Underwood, later judge down in Conroe, we had become good friends, off season. And I looked over to him and I said, "How you doing, Olin?" He growled at me and spit on the ground. I said, "It's going to be a long day." And then one more thing, right fast. We're going up the steps out of the dressing room onto the field, and on every alternating in blood red steps, one said kill Trull, and the other said kill Elkins. And I thought, my goodness, what are we going to do? Well, if that happened today with social media, can you imagine? Oh my God, it'd be the lead story. I'd filed a lawsuit. It'd been a hue and cry somewhere. You mentioned Coach Bridgers, and then Coach Taft comes along later on and resurrects Baylor, the miracle on the Brazos. And then it was a long drought. Coach Briles gets some back-to-back Big 12 championships and competing at a national level. And then, of course, all hell broke loose. And then Matt Rule, 1-11 to a Sugar Bowl, almost won a Big 12 title. Now you have Dave Aranda, 2-7, and trying to turn things around. They've had a nice run with recruiting. What is it about Baylor that they're always resilient? Sometimes they can't help themselves, but what is it about the resiliency of Baylor football? I don't know if you call it resiliency. I think it's just kind of like a cycle, when you go through bad times and you got to get the right guy at the right time with the right players. It's just one of those things. If you throw the ball, you got to have a good quarterback, you got to have receivers. If you run the ball, you got to have good linemen and you got to have good running backs. And it's just cyclical, like that. And fortunately, Baylor's been able to flip it. Once they have a bad year, hopefully they'll be able to flip it again with Aranda. I've got Lawrence and I have season tickets together at the game, so we're hoping it turns out a little better than last year. Lawrence, the national championship in men's basketball. Did you feel like you were as much a part of that as anything because of? I did, really. I got all excited. I felt I belonged to Baylor. And they put a lot for everybody else on that table by winning it, especially the way they beat Gonzaga that last game. They treated him like a step kid. Yeah, they did. They beat him up badly. It's like Coach Pugh after the game a few days later, or weeks later, he's like, why were they so mad at us? Well, because everyone was talking about Gonzaga. That was a fun team. That team was tough as nails. They were some dogs. I mean, angry pit bulls, and they played like it. Yeah, and when I saw Gonzaga play U of H, of course I live in Houston now, I knew Baylor was going to win. If I was a betting man and had a lot of money, I would have put it on Baylor all the time because it's just U of H couldn't handle them, and or U of H, Gonzaga couldn't handle U of H. They almost, came close enough to beating them, and with their defense. And I knew Baylor's defense was twice as good as U of H's defense. And they had some great players and a great coach. Drew's done great. And it's just it's going to be interesting to see how they do next year because they're losing a bunch of guys.
Yeah, they are. A question for you. I know we've talked about Texas and a couple other. We'll do a little rapid fire here, then we'll go back to some other things. Most memorable game you've ever played in?
Blue Bonnet Bowl, 63, when we played LSU. I think LSU was ranked 8th or 9th in the nation. And we played down in Houston in Rice Stadium, and it was about, 25, 28 degrees, something like that.
It was cold.
And misting. And we had a great, they double-team Elkins, and Ingram ended up being the most valuable lineman because they were all doubled up on Lawrence and everything, and I think Ingram caught like 12 or 13 passes that game. So we were able to adjust.
You had 12 catches against Texas. You had 10 against A&M in a game as well. And was there a game that was your most memorable? Was it Blue Bonnet Bowl?
Yeah, it was one of them. I think one of them was the TCU game when I was a sophomore. I scored 3 that day.
Ran a punt back, right?
The ball, ran a punt back 92 yards, and I didn't know I could run that far.
You exhausted?
And TCU didn't know I could either.
They wouldn't have punted it to you if they knew that, right?
No, sideline True was one of them hollered, "Don't catch the ball, let it go." And then they was hollering, and I turned around and ran it all the way back. Because it caught the ball on the 8-yard line going away from the kicker.
Oh, so you were over your shoulder type?
Yeah. And turned around and went all the way back. But, Ingram got a good block on that one. Boy, he just wasted a couple of horn frogs.
Probably also, not to interrupt, but I think for both of us, Texas Tech game, our senior year, was one that was, because we were behind like 9 points with maybe 5 minutes left or something like that, and we scored twice to beat them.
What was the pregame? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
What was the pregame meal like? What did you get? What was it? Like now, God, I
think it was hot dogs.
No, I thought it was horse meat. No, I know I shouldn't have said that.
Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches?
I don't know. We didn't have much of a budget in those days, but I think we had 30-year-old cow steaks, maybe. No, I'm making it. I got to apologize to Baylor on that one.
No, that's okay. When you see now what they have up and down University Parks, when you see McLean Stadium, which is a mile from where we are, and you see Waco has blossomed, and now they want to build a brand new basketball facility, a new football operations, a new welcome center. What do you think?
Welcome to the big time. But I'd always thought that the Badgers had a lot of money. Now I know.
I was told a long time ago that don't ever estimate how much money Baylor has when they need it.
That's what we were always thinking too.
Well, and one thing in Coach Bridger's favor was back when he was a coach, I think his second year or third year, he started the I can't even remember what it was called now, where people will contribute money for, not realistically, but technically on paper, for scholarships to certain individuals. You'd have like someone that contributed your scholarship, donated, and he started that fundraiser, and it evolved, and now with the Bear Foundation and all the fundraising areas of contribution people can contribute has just exploded.
You got heavily involved in helping with that, with Billy Williams, and got him, I think, heavily involved. His name's on a lot of buildings of philanthropy. And were you someone that was able to talk to Billy? I know he probably would.
I talked to Billy a lot. Billy and I roomed together for 4 years, and of course we lost him here about a little over 2 years. Maybe it's been 3, but he was a great individual. I came from Oklahoma City, and I can remember our first meeting. Our freshman coach was Catfish Smith, and we were down at the bottom of Martin Hall, and he was introducing everybody. Catfish always had a name for everybody, and I was from Oklahoma, and he introduced me and said, "He's a bow and arrow kid from Oklahoma." you know. And Billy and I got paired up as just potluck, I guess, for lack of a better term. Everybody else had somebody from their school or somebody they played against in high school, et cetera, as roommates. And we stuck together the whole time. And Billy got his knee torn up his first year and never really played and got active, but loved Baylor, loved golf. When he took his job, he became an executive with Owens Corning and really did well, and then left Owens Corning with 2 other executives from Owens Corning and started buying companies and flipping them. And one company they didn't flip, and Billy took it over up in Chicago and named Liquid Container and did tremendous with it, and then they sold out. And we talked a little, but it was all Billy's idea. Billy wanted to give back, and he loved golf. He was a member of Muirfield up in Jack Nicklaus's course, and had a grandson that was a very good high school golfer that came down here, didn't play golf down here, and just graduated this past year, his grandson. But Billy became friends with McGraw, the coach, and wanted to give something back to Baylor, and did the soccer facility first, and then did I guess they call it now the Billy, out there when we were in school. That was the ROTC marching grounds, where they put the 2 greens and the golf training facility.
Another unbelievable part of
nice.
Baylor
really
facilities.
Nice.
Freshman football, you mentioned freshman football. So that's kind of how you got into coaching, right? Didn't Arkansas, Joe Gibbs?
Yeah, I had my pro career, and I was at Houston, and then I was in Boston 2 years, and then back to Houston, and then I went to Canada my last 2 years in 1970 and 71. And then after I retired from Canada, 72, I got a phone call from some guy named Joe Gibbs, and at that time nobody really knew who Joe Gibbs was unless you played with him or something. And he was on Frank Broyles' staff at University of Arkansas, and Frank, I guess, I really never talked to anybody, never really met Frank or anything other than shaking hands with him after the game or whatever, and he wanted me to be the head freshman coach. This was the last year that freshmen were eligible. And so I went up there and became the freshman coach, and then the next year moved up to varsity and was the backfield coach. We had Joe Gibbs as an offensive line coach and Jimmy Johnson, the defensive coordinator, and then Raymond Berry was on the staff as a receiver coach, and Merv Johnson, who was at Oklahoma forever, and Richard Williamson, who was from Alabama, that I think coached at Memphis and maybe somewhere else. And then Bill Lewis was secondary coach, and he coached at Wyoming after he left Arkansas. So we had a great staff. People say, well, how'd y'all do? Did y'all win the national championship? I said, well, our first year when we were all together, we went 6-4. And you got to have the players. It doesn't matter how good your coaching is. One thing Frank did, I guess, place emphasis on more than anything, prior to me coming to Arkansas in my first 2 years, Frank came into our coach's office one day and said, we're going into inner city in Arkansas. They got a lot of rural kids, rural black guys out of Arkansas, and Frank wanted to balance it out a little more, but he wanted us to go in inner city, going after black kids also, which it strengthened the program. And 2 guys I recruited from Houston, R.C. Thielman and Greg Cook. One played at Atlanta, and Greg played with Green Bay, and I left Arkansas after my third year, and the next year they won the Southwest Conference. Arkansas did. So I was felt like I had a lot of Mike Kirkland from Pasadena was a quarterback, and I recruited him. But it's just Arkansas was kind of a touchy situation with what all happened over there with Faubus and all the way back at at Central High School and everything.
Yeah.
And
Johnson won 2 Super Bowls. Gibbs won 3 Super Bowls, and I know that Raymond Berry was a part of some as a coach and a player, right?
Yeah, and Raymond was at New England.
Yeah. Who's the best coach you ever had?
Goodness, I don't
Anyone
know.
like those names I just mentioned?
Well, I'd say Coach Bridgers, but you can't forget Gordon Wood, because he showed up my senior year at Brownwood High. we were picked 5th in our district and won the first championship in the history of the town, in the state. You know, we didn't have much talent, but he had us mean, in better shape than anybody. I thought that was the meanest guy I'd ever seen. I mean, you couldn't do anything to please him, especially if he was one of the team captains. He had
pushed you pretty hard?
Pushed pretty hard, dressed you down. You thought you did a good job, but evidently you didn't.
Won a state championship.
Sure did. First one ever.
And he ended up winning a bunch of them in the end. So in a matter of just a football season, he flipped everything at Brownwood.
Oh, he did. Made everybody proud of the town, and all of a sudden here comes 3M and Superior Cables and Kohler, and everything just took off from there. And then he retired in the early 80s. They hadn't won one since.
No, they've had some pretty good runs.
And they said it's the players, but I don't know.
Do you remember hosting Walter Abercrombie at your house one night?
Yes, I did.
What are you laughing for?
We were having a little golf tournament out there trying to raise money, and I convinced Walter to come out to the lake, and he played golf that day, and he needed to take a shower. I had forgotten to turn the hot water on. I mean, and he never complained. And that's probably the coldest water on earth, out of the well. Oh.
Yeah, he wanted me to bring that up, by the way. He said, hey, ask him about that time I spent the night and I froze to death taking a shower.
I didn't know they had hot water out in Brownwood.
Well,
where'd y'all get that?
It just came in, but anyway. And he didn't complain, didn't say a word, but he's tough. I'd have been screaming.
Yeah, that's one of those that sometimes just randomly, wherever you're taking the shower, and when it doesn't get warm, you just have to have almost courage to get underneath of that, and it's about a 30-second shower.
But old Walter proved he was tough that evening.
College Football Hall of Fame, I mentioned it off the top. You were inducted in 93.
Yeah, I think so.
Don, 2013.
Correct.
You were in Saudi Arabia. That's another part of your life that we'll get into in the Middle East. And in your induction speech, you said something about, I would never have missed this because this isn't for 1 year or for 4 years. This is forever. What did that mean to you?
Well, I spent a lot of time in that desert by myself. And I don't know, I just thought how great it was to get selected to that thing. Out of all the people that played football in America since its outset, our onset, and then to have Don and me in that thing, that was something.
Did it make it complete when he finally was introduced?
Oh yeah, I was pushing for him. I'd call old Archie, and I'd go to those things, and that's why I went in 2000 trying to pump you up to get in there. You know, talking to Switzer and the old boy from Tennessee, Johnny Majors.
Johnny Majors, yeah.
And I was tickled when they finally selected him.
It was the last year you were eligible?
Yeah, you're only eligible 50 years from the date you play your senior year. So 63 was my senior year, so I've had a chance to get in 50 years from then, which 2013 was the last year of my eligibility.
I'm a voter on that, and it's a list every year. You sit there and go, my gosh, I can only pick 8 or 12 or whatever, and then there's a division.
Yeah.
What? Did you ever give up that you would get in?
I didn't give up. And speaking of my roommate a while ago, Billy, I think probably Billy had a lot to do with it. He got involved with them also, pushing them and sending them letters, and which I'm sure, I know it helped.
What did you do when you got the call?
I was on my patio outside, and it was Archie. Archie called. I think Archie calls everybody at the time. I don't know who was chairman when you were.
He wasn't there yet.
He wasn't there yet, but he was chairman of the National Football Foundation. I was very shocked, but very appreciative, and at last.
There's Montana and Rice. There is Clayton, Duper, and Marino. And there's, passing combinations. RG3, Kendall Wright, among many others that have been the more modern-day quarterbacks and receivers, the great receivers that Baylor's had as well. And there's obviously Trull and Elkins.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that. You wonder how good were we compared to everybody else. And a different time, I told Don if it was today, I wouldn't even make the team.
No, that's not right.
Well, that's how I felt. But
instead of catching 70 one year, you'd probably catch 140.
Well, I don't know. Yeah.
We didn't throw ever down. We had a running game. We had to have a running game to have a little balance and everything. But I think when I got inducted to the Texas Hall of Fame, Art was in the audience, Bryles, and I looked at him and I said, I wish I'd have played for you also. I love Coach Bridgers, but having a chance in that offense as a quarterback and as a receiver, of course, there's so many receivers, you spread it around a lot more. But we spread it around pretty good. Lawrence caught 70 his senior year. And Ingram, I think, caught 58, and we had two tight ends. One caught 30 and one caught 20. So we spread it around pretty good. Didn't throw a lot to the halfbacks.
Both of you you played in the National Football League or the AFL or the NFL. You mentioned the WFL, the Canadian Football League. You've been all around. And then you even mentioned a couple other leagues you were a part of as well. You guys had a chance to play and had some sporadic success. You broke your collarbone?
Well, that was one of the injuries. The first thing was Don led me in a goalpost and I got wrapped around it.
Wait a second. Before I take credit for leading him to the goalpost, we played an exhibition game against the Jets. Their rookie year with Namath was a rookie. So they had it back then, exhibition games, they would put them in places where players on each team may have had a college connection or something from that area. So we played in Arlington, Virginia. Namath was a rookie quarterback, and we played at a high school stadium, and the goalposts were on the goal line. Two standers, not just one. Two. And so we were on about the 10-yard line and threw kind of what we threw at Baylor, like a quick post. Lawrence caught it and looked up, and that standard was right there, and he planted, and I think the plant tore his leg up more than the hit.
Can you believe that it took forever for that. It's like, well, whose idea was it? Let's stick these two things in the field of play.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So you had the knee injury or the leg injury and then also a collarbone. Do you ever feel like, what if?
Well, I have thought about that more than once, and I was supposed to be at the college all-star game that night. The Houston Oilers told them I was hurt, but they put me in the game, and I got hurt. They got fined $2,500 for playing me illegally in a game where I never was the same, really.
Who told me about a road trip when you played, or someone's mentioned that you were someone with the Oilers, and you had a road trip, and you guys had to drive to the road trip. Mike Holovac was either the coach or the general manager. You're at a team hotel, and they said, "Don't put the beds down, so we can get just half price. They won't charge us full price for the room."
This is when I was in Boston. Mike Holovac.
Oh, it's Patriots.
When I was with the Patriots.
All right.
And I'd got traded after the fourth game of 1967 from the Oilers, and I was kind of ready to get out of the Oilers because there was a bunch of coaching situations with Bud Adams and the coaching changes and all, and it was very unstable. And so I said, "Oh, great, man, I'm going to Boston, and they've got Jim Nantz, man, it'll take the heat off the passer and all." And so we're getting ready to go play an exhibition game against the Jets, and it's I can't even remember where it was, but we took a train. It was close, and we took a train. And on the Friday after practice, or right before practice, the coach was meeting with us all, saying, "We're going." And Holovac never looked at the guys when he talked to them. He'd look up at the ceiling, "Guys," and he had that New England accent. "Guys, we're going up to play the Jets over in wherever it was," and he says, "I want you to do me one favor." And of course, Boston had some good years with Jim Nance, Babe Parilli, and Gino Cappelletti. They were the three guys kind of that were the leaders of that team. And he says, I want y'all to do me a favor. Since this exhibition game is so close, we're going over on the train on Saturday. And the game was Saturday night. We weren't spending the night. And he said, we're going over Saturday. And I want y'all to just get off your feet, watch a college game and everything, but I want you to do me a favor. He says, don't turn the covers back because we get a better rate if we don't mess the bed up. I hope I won't get X-rated here. But Cappelletti said, Coach, when we go into the restroom, he said, they've got that deal, that piece of paper over the toilet seat. Should we tear it and leave it in place? I swear. And you know, people wouldn't believe that today. I mean, that's the way, because Holloway later came to the Oilers as general manager and was signing $1 million contracts to
left
guys,
and right.
you know.
You had a chance to play at two different places. You were drafted, right? But in the AFL and NFL?
Yeah.
You picked the Oilers. What did Bud Adams promise you?
Oh, one of those same things they promised Appleton, a Phillips 66 service station that I'd get 20 years down the road.
A gas station, like an old-fashioned full service like we never see anymore.
Right.
A gas station.
That was it.
20 years later, you were going to get that.
Yeah, and 20 years later, I had a lot of other people had their hands out to get part of that station too. But that's another
So
story.
your bonus baby ended up in the hands of somebody else then, right?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Donnie Anderson said, Elkins, you want me to give you part of my bonus? Because I was #1 draft choice for Lombardi at Green Bay. Donnie was the #1 future choice since he flunked out of school his freshman year at Texas Tech. So when they didn't sign me, they signed him the next year for $942,000.
Wow.
About 5 times what I signed for the year before, but which is more money than I ever seen in my life anyway.
Wait a minute. You had a chance to play for Vince Lombardi and the Green Bay Packers?
3 world championships. Yep. And I saw him.
By the way, that would have trumped Gordon Wood being mean, because you know how tough Lombardi was. Players loved him. They hated him. They loved him, though. But he won.
I'd have probably snuck out in the middle of the night and headed back to Brownwood, maybe. But I don't know. I met him. Tom Fears drove me to a little Catholic chapel at the side of Love Field early on Sunday morning after we'd finished playing Rice here the afternoon before. And I see this little old guy with this little fedora and that gap teeth, and I didn't know who he was. I really didn't. And me, I hadn't heard much of Lombardi. And he looked at me with an old toothy grin. He said, son, I've never drafted a pass catcher #1, but to me, you're the best third down receiver in America in college, and all I want you to do is catch third and long from Bart Starr. And I guess I should have taken that to heart.
Wow. So instead of you, it was Boyd Dowler, Carroll Dale, Max McGee.
But I might have gotten splinters on a Green Bay bench. I don't know.
Oh, I think they maybe got splinters.
Yeah, I don't know. But they, and all those people were 6'4", 6'5", and I'm 6'1". So,
what kind of pass did he throw? Was it an easy catch pass? Is it like a tight spiral kind of?
Unless he threw it in the bleachers. No, I was kidding.
He says that about you a lot.
We'll not talk about him in a minute.
Anyway, he learned the technique of, I don't know, it's like it. Yeah, y'all had that deal about throwing against the gym wall with that mat there, and if you right-handed and it fell to the right, then you had the nose up properly, or was it reversed?
Backwards.
Backwards. Okay.
Backwards.
Well, I wasn't a quarterback either.
As long as you catch him, you don't know how they bounce. Okay.
But he I guess something about throwing his wrist out.
Oh yeah.
And bringing the nose up, and if that nose is up, you're gonna have a lot easier time catching it. And he never threw a hard pass. He really did.
It's very catchable.
Very catchable.
You can see sometimes on games, some quarterbacks, when you release the ball, your 2 last fingers is like that. People don't realize when you throw a football, it's like that. And some guys throw it like this.
Baseball.
Like a baseball,
Yeah.
and it nose down, and you can see a guy running it, especially short passes, in the flat route or a crossover route, and it hits them right in the hands, and they don't catch it, but it's because it's coming in there with the nose down, which means they're only getting the bottom, or as it turns out, the top half of the ball into their hands, and it slips through. And Coach Purvis was my quarterback coach and got with me, and I spent hours and hours over in Rena Mars McLean Gymnasium in the summertime, 5 days a week, throwing balls into the mat and into the backboard. I do it at different levels. Coach Purvis was writing his master's on the art of throwing the forward pass, or his doctor's, I guess it was, and had it Pierce. I don't know if you remember the guy. What was Pierce's first name, or the guy that filmed our games?
Yeah.
I can't remember. His name was Pierce.
I'd say Franklin Pierce.
But he was always over there, and they got shots from me behind, and we had tape over the nose of the ball four times, and you could see it, whether it was up or down, and then it, like Lawrence said, if it came straight back or went to the left. The majority of the time it comes straight back. I mean, I could get 10 feet from the mat under a basketball goal and throw it and catch it a bunch, more times than not.
Lombardi mentioned his third down and his ability, clutch passes. You've thrown, Ingram had 58 catches and Lawrence had 70, and then you threw to a lot of others throughout your career. What was it like to have him as your...
Well, it was great. Lawrence, probably his biggest attributes were, number one, he had a great pair of hands. He's a big bone individual and has very strong hands. Can't even tell you about his brothers. They had strong hands. About the one that can, what is it, a nickel or a penny?
No, a quarter.
A quarter.
He
can rip a quarter in two.
Your brother could?
His brother.
No, my older brother.
Can rip a quarter in half?
Quarter in two like this, and you can't even take metal shears and cut it in two.
No. You're going to ruin the
just
shears.
do that and then rip it. And I told him, "Why didn't you tell anybody? We could have made $1 million in Vegas on you."
Like some show.
He was the strongest guy I've ever seen. Wasn't that big? It just had these big old gnarled hands. And
okay, let me finish telling about your abilities. And he was a great athlete in high school. Of course, I didn't know anybody from Texas other than I played in the old Oil Bowl.
Oil Bowl, yeah.
With Ronnie Goodwin was on the other team. Trying to think, two other people, maybe Bert Tate and one other one. Unfortunately, we've lost them too. It's just getting, I've been going to so many funerals here in the last 2 years. It's terrible. But anyway, Lawrence, besides being a great athlete and having great hands, was his break out of a route, whether you're running a sideline route, whether you're running a post route, or whether you're running a comeback route. Lawrence, acceleration off the break was the best I've ever seen. Guys in the pros I played with Charlie Hennigan with the Oilers, who was all pro with AFL. But Lawrence had the ability to come off a break, and I think it was probably from his track. He was a great quarter miler in high school. Great quarter mile. That's one of the toughest races there is in track. And he had that ability, and then he could catch the ball and could take a lot of punishment because I didn't throw him perfect all the time. But sometimes he had to go up high or stop and catch it from behind and all. But and let me add one other thing, which going into the pros, the biggest thing in the pros, you got to be in the right place at the right time with the right coaches. And if you don't have that, it doesn't matter how good you are. And I'm saying this not on my behalf, but on his behalf.
Both of them.
Lawrence, coaches don't know how to coach people. That was one ability that Coach Bridgers had. You can't coach every player exactly the same. Mm-hmm. And that's a coaching trait I learned from Coach Bridgers, which I hope I used at Arkansas with players, because there's some guys that you've got to pamper a little bit and agree with them a little bit instead of holler at them and cuss them out. And there's some you got to holler out and cuss them out, and they play that much better. But Lawrence was the kind of guy, Bridgers knew how to handle Lawrence. And Lawrence, on like Monday or Tuesday, after we'd played on Saturday, we'd be in practice and say, "Where's Lawrence, man?" And Coach would say, "Oh, well, he was hurting a little bit. He was inside." Where Lawrence got out of more Monday and Tuesday practices than anybody.
Did you really?
And on Tuesday, I was down at the Union Building at Hot Chocolate Hour, looking at all the AOs and the Athenians.
And they're out there practicing.
And we're out there practicing. And Coach
well, I didn't do
he knew
that
how to get into
week.
Coach Bridger's soft spot.
Star treatment. It's a star treatment, right?
And he had come out, he had missed practice up to Thursday or Friday, when it's short practices, and he'd come out on the weekend and catch 15 passes,
Both of you, post-football, have been everywhere. I mean, you were in Africa, you were in Europe, you were in Saudi Arabia forever.
Yeah.
The Minister of Water. You worked for the Ministry of Water?
I worked for them, yeah.
You were the Minister of Water. You worked for the Ministry of Water. You told me last night when we talked on the phone about all of the different places you've been, whether it's been in the banking business, the renovation business, the whatever. I mean, you guys, you've been around.
It's not our first rodeo, that's for sure.
Yeah. And so how did you get involved in Saudi Arabia? And it was an oil company, correct?
No, it was the Saudi Arabian Ministry of Water and Power. I applied for the job. I had a big full-page ad in the Houston Chronicle, and I was a little short on cash at that time, I think, and I had to do something. One of the midlife crisis deals. I had to have a job. And here's all this stuff, all this list of jobs in Saudi Arabia with something called Saline Water Conversion Corporation. I applied for the job and baffled them so much with stuff. They had a Saudi and an Englishman interviewed me. And I pulled things on them, and I remembered my organic chemistry a little bit, and I baffled them so much. Out of 232 applicants, they hired me.
Can you spell organic?
I can spell N.
Oh my God! Dickie Magel helped you get a job in the Brown and Root? Is that right?
Brown and Root, yes, sir.
He's kind of a famous college football name, huh? Dickie Magel.
He was.
Yeah.
And
Dickie had a motel right by Rice on South Main, right by the medical center, called the Tidelands Inn, and had a club upstairs where they had name entertainment. I mean, like, I can't even think of it. They're older people. People wouldn't know who they are now. They weren't rappers, that's for sure. But he was a great player at Rice. He was the one that had the famous getting tackled off the bench by Tommy, was it Lewis?
Alabama.
That's from Alabama in the Cotton Bowl. Yeah. But we became friends with Dickie because he'd always kind of have a lunch every Monday after games, and a bunch of old cronies that would go to the games. And fortunately, Elkins and I sometimes would get to go over and all and discuss what happened the last week at the game and all. And we became friends, and Lawrence became friends with him, and it was very interesting.
So you had that entertainment club, whatever, the Dickie Magel at his hotel. Johnny Carson Tonight Show.
Yeah.
Robert Duvall with movies, and Sammy Baugh. I mean, did you ever think he got a little bit highfalutin, Don? He was
never got highfalutin. I don't think that's possible.
What was the name of the movie? Tender Mercies, and then there was Lonesome Dove, and he brought you to the Academy Awards.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I thought I was in tall cotton then.
I bet.
Riding in Duvall's limousine to the Academy Awards with Wilford Brimley, who was a great old actor.
Oh, yeah.
I spent 2 years in a TV series being his stunt double, and I was 8 inches taller than him. Figure that one out. But anyway.
The Johnny Carson show was in '64. You were on the cover of, was it Sports Illustrated? Okay, and then it was an article about Baylor with you and Lawrence and Coach Bridgers. And then you guys seriously think about this. And then you're fourth in the voting for the Heisman Trophy one year.
Correct.
Look magazine, I think. You guys.
Look All-American. We both
Look All-American. I mean, this.
Yeah, we were fortunate.
Very fortunate.
So was Baylor.
Well, so.
Baylor gave us an education, and we didn't have to pay for it.
Yeah,
right?
for him, of course, he was a Blake Scholar in math and was a GTE Academic All-American, 3 times?
Yeah.
And Staubach wasn't. I didn't. I get in trouble for that one.
No.
Hey, Staubach wins the Heisman in '63 because all the voting's east of the Mississippi River.
No,
you realize that?
No, yeah, there's a lot. Yeah.
Votes.
What was that? Was there actually a ceremony?
No
what
ceremony.
was that like? Because I know
It
it's
was
changed.
different.
I've seen it changed in my lifetime.
Yeah, no ceremony back then.
They just They just
announced it. Didn't have it on TV or anything.
Can you believe how? And I'm kind of torn on this. Everything now is like, golly, you have an 2-hour pregame and you have this music and bands, and it's just, I guess, what maybe people want. It's gotten to the point now where they drag it out for hours, and it's because they can make money off of it, you know. And now it's a bit. When RG3 won it, and you were again so close in '63, what did that mean to you as a quarterback?
Well, I thought it was great, you know, and I became friends with RG while he was here and everything. And I see now, what was it I just saw in the paper where he's getting interviewed already for doing
analyst work,
doing analyst work after the season. And he's a good guy, smart guy, talented athlete, of course, and as we all know, and very humble guy too. And like I say, I think the worst injustice for him was when he was with the Redskins and he was injured, and the coach Shanahan, you know the father-son, and leaving him in there or putting him in there, you know, which hurt him bad.
Yeah, there was a lot of that organization's a mess.
And that's like what I said earlier about being in the right place, the right time, the right coaching staff.
Because his rookie year, boy,
it's all got to click.
He was unbelievable.
Yes, he was.
And they allowed him to be him as well. You were in Saudi Arabia how long?
14 years and 2 months. Left in the middle of the night.
Why?
Well, people
Tell them about your friends.
What?
Tell them about your friends, the Bedouins.
Oh, the Bedouins got me out of town. They thought I looked like a CIA person, and I told them I couldn't spell intelligence. But
CIA.
They became very unhappy with me overnight, and that was probably due to Bush's shock and awe when he bombed the Iraqis, and didn't faze them any. And I told them, they didn't hear me, you're bombing the wrong people. Hey, boy, I was in trouble. Those people turned on me.
Wow.
They used to be my friends, and overnight they were not.
And you had to leave in the middle of the night? Were you scared for your life?
Not exactly, but yeah, you know, I embellished it a little bit. But I had an old Bedouin that I befriended for years, and his name was Thabit Soweto Al-Luhibi, which is a tribal name out in those sand hills. And he come by my office one morning, he's always got this old toothy grin. Mr. Lawrence. I said, yeah, Mr. Thabit, how you doing? He said, have you ever considered when you might want to leave Saudi Arabia? And I said, I don't know, Mr. Thabit, what do you think? He said, well, how about Amps? Amps is yesterday in Arabic. And boy, I knew I was in trouble then.
So you suggested the wrong country was getting hammered.
Yeah, but it didn't have anything to do with Saudi Arabia. I was wondering why they were bombing the Iraqis when they didn't have any weapons of mass destruction. They'd been shoved into Syria all these years. They didn't have.
I was going to ask you about Saudi Arabia. I was going to ask you that. I was like, when you were there, did you see? Because you hear, and of course, there's so many different things in politics or whatever. I mean, did you see tension all the time, or I mean, was it?
No, it was just when we loaded them up, you know, during the Gulf War.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't used to that. They didn't like it. You had our Marine women guards in shorts and no abayas, no whatever it is they have on their head, and it just freaked them out. And it freaked bin Laden out too. He was kind of neutral. He didn't like us, but that really put him over the edge when he saw all them women running around with not many clothes on. And that's just between me and you and the wall.
And SicEm365.
I was going to say.
Yes, I've done that, yeah.
Dutch Schrader.
Yes, sir.
What did he mean to you, and what do you think you meant to him?
Well, we didn't mean much to each other when I showed up at Baylor. I'd do things that make him so mad. And since Bridgers was my boss, he couldn't do much about it. And Miss Becky's daughter was wondering who he was mouthing off about at the supper table every night. She found out about 50 years later it was me. He was complaining about that dadgum Elkins at the supper table. You know what he did in my PE class? Because I took an elective with, in different PE things. And one time, a fast story here. It had rained at Minglewood Bowl used to be down on the right side of, or back of Martin Hall.
Brooks and Martin, yeah.
Yeah. And it rained one night, and Waco Creek was running. And so it was hitting principals the next day, and they had these big old, 16-inch, the old slow pitch softballs. Had 6 brand new ones. So he said, Elkins, get up there and bat. And I got up there, he threw me 6 pitches. I hit 6 of those big balls over everything into Waco Creek, and it floated to the Brazos.
Brand new balls gone.
And he was so mad at me because there went all his softballs and class, couldn't do anything. Oh, he was seething. Just things like that.
So what happened when you started dating his daughter?
Oh, Lord. Not nothing much, because I'd been coming by and taking him to different places. We got to be good friends. I was his chauffeur, his driver. He bragged about that. Everybody knew. Guess who my driver is?
Orange Elkins.
We went to Houston and Dallas and everywhere, and we kept him, the last couple of years of his life, and it was tough.
John McClain told me a story. Of course, you guys know both John, Waco, Trib, and then, of course, now the Chronicle, Hall of Fame writer. He said that when he was a Little League baseball player, you used to go to some of the Little League practices and show kids, how to play the game, or even try to teach them how to throw a curveball.
Yeah, I remember
You spent time doing, you remember that?
Yeah. I remember that. And I remember I gave him my chin strap after a Baylor game, and True wouldn't give his. But I made that up.
I was going to say.
Anyway.
Don Truill played in the NFL, played with, did you actually win the AFL, right? Too? AFL, I'm sorry. The WFL with the Shreveport Steamer.
Before that, it first was the Houston Texans, not like the current one.
Right.
A guy named Steve Arnold from California is the guy that put the cash in and everything. And then we played almost a season in the Astrodome, and he ran out of money. And then the franchise was sold to Shreveport. And then we went to Shreveport, the Shreveport Steamer. And
what about the game in which you guys were supposed to play and you didn't have your uniforms?
We went over to Shreveport, and most of us stayed in the Holiday Inn because it was the end of one season. I think we had 5 or 6 games left. And Garland Boyette, who was a linebacker with the Cardinals and came with the Oilers, and he also went to Shreveport. I went to WFL with Houston, and then we went to Shreveport. And he was kind of the defensive captain. I guess I was the offensive captain because I was a lot older than most of the guys there and everything. And I got a call on a Wednesday from a dry cleaners, and didn't know me from a hole in the ground, but knew I was a quarterback, and said, this is Bill Brown, and I'm with so-and-so cleaners, and we clean y'all's uniforms, and we haven't been paid in 3 weeks for the last 3 games. And y'all are playing Friday night or Saturday night. I can't even remember what night it was. And we can't let the uniforms go till we get everything back paid current, or y'all aren't going to play. And so Garland and I talked, and we met with the team. And so I called an attorney, and we attached the gate receipts in Shreveport where nothing would get paid until the dry cleaners was paid with the gate receipts. And then it was whatever else it went to was after that. It was an experience. Then, after that game, we always meet on Monday. You come out on Monday, and, it wasn't as many guys there, and I saw a guy putting a helmet in a bag and a guy putting a jersey in another bag, and didn't see any coaches or anything at all. And so I picked up a couple of footballs and put them in a bag, and that was the last.
That was it.
That was it. Everybody was getting what they could get.
These leagues, I mean, the AFL was good enough, strong enough, had enough star power, Al Davis, among others, as owners, to eventually force the NFL into a merger. But the other ones, they just come and go. The WFL, the USFL made a run with the great superstars like Steve Young and Herschel Walker and all the others, and they eventually ran themselves into the ground. And the XFL never, and the Spring League.
Did you ever get paid all your money?
I'm still waiting on it.
That's what I thought. Still waiting on salary from those days.
From the WFL?
WFL, yeah.
You'll never get it, man.
No, I don't think I will.
Never going to get it. Joe Gibbs, I went back to him for a second. I told you how much I think he's just, my God.
Great guy.
Now in NASCAR, he's won numerous NASCAR championships. He's just quiet, kind of looks like a cerebral, quiet guy, the glasses and all that. And I remember when he took over what was then the Washington Redskins, now the Washington football team, they got off to a rugged, kind of a tough start, and they weren't. Jack Kent Cook wasn't so sure, but then the rest is history. One of the greatest winning percentages, 3 Super Bowls. You saw him and his competitive edge. How?
It was an interesting story. When I got a phone call from him, and like I said, I didn't know who he was. He told me I'm on Coach Broyles' staff here at the University of Arkansas, and Coach Broyles would like you to come up here and visit with him about maybe coaching the freshman team. And so I went up there and visited, and I was very impressed with the whole situation, and so I ended up going to Arkansas to be the head freshman coach. And my first 2 or 3 weeks, of course, my wife and family were still in Houston, and I lived in the dormitory in a single room. And of course, as I'd mentioned earlier, the staff was Raymond Berry and Jimmy Johnson, et cetera. And so everybody's trying to be nice to me, asking me to come to their house for dinner because I was up there by myself and all. And so you was talking about Joe being quiet and everything. He kind of had a devious laugh. I don't know if you've ever heard him laughing. I was kind of like, like that. And so we said, hey, you don't play racquetball by any chance, do you? And I happened to play racquetball when I was in Houston. I said, yeah, I play racquetball. He said, well, after practice or before practice, why don't we meet over at the racquetball courts and we'll play? I said, okay. And so, Joe was kind of pudgy and was a lineman, and yeah, and I was a quarterback, and thought, I'll go give him a game, And he wore me out on the racquetball court, and he didn't mind doing it. I mean, he beat me like 21-4, and next game he didn't take no quarters. He beat me about the same again, I mean, he was a heck of a player. And the other thing that was unusual about him, which shows now in his later years, he had a motorcycle. And he used to race motorcycles.
So a little edge, a little.
And that's, I'm sure, and then he got into the NASCAR and everything, and been very successful at it.
Okay, I mentioned Joe Gibbs it made me think of another question. Dave Aranda is you could see him. He's not a scream yeller. We mentioned it. Everyone has different personalities. And whenever we've mentioned Dave Aranda, and of course, when you're 2-7, people go, he doesn't care enough, or it doesn't mean anything, just because Tony Dungy, Lovie Smith, there's others, Tom Landry, rarely ever exploded on the sideline, maybe once or twice. And then you have the ones who are rugged and rough, whether it's Lombardi or Knoll or whoever. Parcells. Dave Aranda has that quiet demeanor, and obviously last year was a nightmare because of COVID. Your thoughts of Dave Aranda and year 2, because they're in this little stretch here where now people can actually come to Baylor, prospects can get on campus, they can have official or unofficial visit, and they're kind of in a nice little run here with recruiting.
Yeah, as you mentioned, last year was kind of a let's just throw it out and start over, so to speak, year. And I've always said, and I'm not saying it in this case, I'm just in generalities, when a defense coordinator takes a head job, and there's been some very successful ones, like Joe Gibbs, he was a defense coordinator in college, and of course Aranda was very successful at LSU and all. He's only as good as his offensive coordinator, when he gets a head job, and that's my firm belief, because defense you don't have to worry about, okay? And I'm not saying this derogatory or anything. Coach Miranda may know a lot about offense, but you're only as good as your offensive staff and your offensive assistants. So hopefully, and I thought last year, and I can't even remember who the offensive coordinator was.
Larry Fedora.
Fedora, had a pretty good track record. I thought I didn't know him that much about him and all, and I thought that we were going to be good. Okay, and for whatever reason, we weren't offensively, whether it be COVID, didn't have the players, et cetera, et cetera. Now he's got his new staff, or not new staff, but new staff on the offensive side, and let's hope it pans out, because I feel like they got the players. I think the quarterback situation, of course, on any team is the key to your offense, and
they got a nice little young, talented, but just inexperienced kind of a raw group that they'll try to find out what
bring
they can
along
do
and see who should be in there.
You guys have season tickets. I don't know how many games you were able to go to, because there weren't many. But Lawrence, when you watch an offense struggle, and first, second, third down, and 3rd and 5 seemed like it was, you might as well punt. And I'm not trying to be flippant. How hard was it to watch that as a guy that was a part of a prolific offense, or just someone who loves Baylor?
I just quit saying catch the dadgum football. I gave up on that too. But anyway, I don't know much about the game like Don does. He watches all the chess on there, and I just watch where the ball goes. That's me as a fan. I hear all these people saying they should have been in this formation, that technique, and I wonder who are they? When Truly knows what he's talking about. But he said, "Did you see that?" And I said, "See what?" I was looking at the ball.
Well, most fans watch where the ball is, the center, the snap, and that's it.
And what we watch more than anything up there is how the secondary covers receivers.
Yeah.
And there would be times in any game where people are overplayed or underplayed, and the defense is inside and you should be throwing outside, and the team tries to throw it inside, or vice versa. If a guy's playing outside shoulder, it's a heck of a lot easier to throw it inside. And where the safeties are, that's one thing. Back when Rule was here, and he did a great job, but his defense sometimes, and they changed it up in the last couple of years, where the two safeties would turn around and start backing up before the ball's ever snapped. Like a cover, I don't know what they call it. We'd call it cover 3 or cover 5 when I was playing. And you just can't do that. It tips your hand. And if you're playing against a team that can adjust on the fly, so to speak, it's tough to defend them.
Yeah, that last year, though, man, my God, they were unbelievable. And that last year's defense, you could see it. As you mentioned, the defense still, a couple of times they got grilled pretty good. We brought up the 1963 season in that game with Texas, and obviously the end of the game was wow. It was so close, and yet it didn't end well. How much did he take that loss on his own shoulders?
I thought he blamed it on me. No, I'm just off.
Is this when the applause sign's supposed to get?
Yes, that was. No, I felt badly. Of course, I felt pretty hurt too. Don was having his mouth and lips sewed up at halftime, where one of their players hit him with an elbow after the whistle blew, and he was on top of a pile.
Tommy Ford.
Yeah. Tommy Ford, and I
got the name and license number.
Yeah. And I
that's now on record.
And I had 2% xylocaine stuck in both ankles because they were hurting so bad I couldn't run. So I had assisted running in the second half, and you don't broadcast that back in those days, but when it wore off, I was in trouble.
Well, we actually had two plays. I talked about the one at the end of the game, Elkins, where he down and out, and here come Carlisle. But it was the first or second series. We would always, one thing about Coach Bridgers, he wasn't afraid to take chances. And we would always put a play in or two for a particular team every week. We'd do it, an unusual play. Against LSU, we did what called the Alumni Pass. Bridgers was funny. He'd say, "We're going to call this the Alumni Pass. This is just for the alumni." And it was a double reverse pitchback. And we had a guy slow play and then go deep, but then Lawrence would pitch it back to me, and then he would continue on down the sidelines. Well, we had that for LSU, and we did it, and the wide receiver was covered, but they forgot about Lawrence going around the left. And that was the first time I ever threw it to Lawrence after he had pitched me the ball going, you remember that,
Yeah,
going to the left.
I slid under Charlie Mack, knocked his feet out from under
the bench over
Charlie McClendon.
Oh, yeah.
But then in the Texas game, I think it was the first series, maybe the second series, right in front of their bench. It was our bench on the right side. And it was kind of a wet day, you know, and all, but
windy, cold.
We ran Lawrence on like an out and up, and he's wide open. And I didn't want to overthrow him, but I'd like to hit him in stride, you know, and end up hanging up there and all, and he caught it, and they kind of got him, you know, from behind. He gained, I don't know, maybe 30 or 40 yards. But if I'd had it out there, he would have scored because they weren't going to catch him. But anyway, you know, there's plays like that you remember and stick in your mind.
How often do you guys talk?
Not very.
Yeah. But it's like you are connected forever.
Yeah, we are. But compared to him, I have a limited vocabulary, so it's hard to talk to him.
We talk, I don't know, maybe every 2 or 3
But you
weeks.
see each other at functions and some things like that. And then last year, of course, was hard. He said he was a prankster and that you were the serious one.
Yeah, that's it.
Do you remember anything he may have done as a prankster or...
When we were rookies, I think, wasn't it you pulled the deal on Charlie Frazier? When we were at Kerrville?
No, I didn't.
Snake, did you do the snake deal?
I did the snake deal, but that was on, I thought it was you and Bethard.
No.
Well, who'd I put that rattlesnake between whose beds that night?
It wasn't ours. That's at a training camp. He got a snake.
Well, I got a lot of mileage out of that when Wally Lim, our coach, said, if I ever catch who put that rattlesnake in the quarterback's room, they'll never play another down in the NFL. I almost didn't. And
Was
why
it,
did that? I don't
what
know.
did you, was it live?
It was when I opened the trunk. I had made me a snake catcher, and I'd looked all training camp.
You put a rattlesnake in the trunk of your car?
And then it got loose. And when I lifted the trunk up, we were at Crider's open air dance land. Willie Nelson's playing that night. I said, everybody said, come here, I want to show you something. And I didn't realize that snake had gotten loose from that noose. I lifted that up and it like that, and it took 2 days to round the Oilers up. Boy, they were jumping fences, and I wasn't through that snake. Of course, I did $500 worth of damage to the trunk of my car trying to kill that snake with a tire tube. With him striking at me, that's how nutty I was.
Yeah, that I think that would have ended my friendship with you right there.
And then I rolled him up between those beds, and he was still.
And it was dead at that time, right? Or was it?
It was still writhing.
Oh yeah, isn't it weird how that?
Lawrence had the reputation of he spent more time, as he mentioned earlier, in the Baylor Student Union than going to class.
Really?
And it wasn't because he was thirsty. It was because of the ladies that were in there.
Never caught one of them, never got a date.
No one ever finally just said, I'll go out with you? Or
I finally realized looking in the mirror I was rather homely looking. But anyway.
What was the bowl game? Oh, no, it was not a bowl game. Baylor Syracuse, this was your senior year, I think. And Floyd Little, Larry Zonka were on Syracuse.
That was the year after I left.
Oh, the year after you left.
Yes,
okay. So neither one of you were there.
No.
Okay. The Milton Berle was being driven around the track in a convertible. I didn't know if that was your last year or not.
No, that was Syracuse. My first year at the Oilers, but they worked them over.
I want you to look at him for a second. I know that.
That's hard to do.
What is when you think of Don Truhl, Lawrence Elkins, what do you think of?
I just think of my old friend Gator.
Why did you get that nickname?
because I had 2 teeth missing. I had a partial bridge, and of course I took the bridge out when I played. But what's crazy, in high school, I played baseball and had it when I was my older brother, when I was about, 12 years old. This is for modern techniques of implants and everything else. These little gliders, balsa wood planes you'd throw, and they'd do loop-the-loops, and he threw one at me, and I had a baseball bat in my hand, and I ducked and hit my teeth and broke one off, and it killed the root and all, so it had to be pulled, and so then I got a partial plate. But my baseball coach, who was the father of one of my teammates, growing up in Little League, we went and won the state championship in Little League baseball, and he gave me the name of Gator because he said, well, you smile and you look like an alligator. I had that gap right in the front. And ironically, I got to Baylor. I didn't tell anybody or anything, and Ronnie Stanley was 2 years ahead of me, and he and Herbie Atkins lived on my floor at the end of the hall in Martin Hall, and we were practicing one day or something, and Stanley said, damn, you look just like a Gator, Truel.
And that's where it all started.
That's where it all started.
So, when you think of him?
Well, I think he's pretty neat. Wish I was smart as he was, but I never have been. Anyway, we've been good friends, but if it wasn't for him, wouldn't have done near as much at Baylor.
Can you imagine your football career or life if he had Oklahoma City to anywhere else?
Yeah,
I mean, you still would have been a good player. No matter where you would have gone, he would have still been a great player as well. Both of you would have been great. But just how things happen. Some kid from Southeast High School, is that what you said? And here you are from Brownwood.
Brownwood, and including the Bluebonnet Bowl, catch 77 passes in one season.
I said 70. I couldn't remember.
Well, I caught 7, but they don't count.
They didn't count the bowl games.
Didn't count it.
Yeah.
So I could still say 77.
Now, speaking of my high school, small school on the south side of Oklahoma City. I don't know if you're familiar with Oklahoma City.
Oh, yeah.
The Canadian River runs through it, and there's the north side with Northwest Classen and Nichols Hills, which is the more affluent side of town.
Right.
My dad was a cab driver, and we lived on the south side of town. And, of course, the south side always thought we were a lot tougher, and we were, than the kids on the north side and everything. But from our school, our first All-American and Hall of Famer was a guy by the name of Clinton Thomas, Oklahoma, shared halfback opposite Tommy McDonald. And then a kid that was our ball boy, he was a freshman. His brother played football but wasn't very good. Was a little kid by the name of Bobby Mercer, if you remember him.
The baseball player with the Yankees.
Great. He was a high school halfback and a linebacker, scored 54 touchdowns in high school.
Well, Mickey Mantle was a Oklahoman too, right?
Commerce,
I mean, that's state,
Commerce.
yeah.
But Bobby had a football scholarship.
Remember
to
Bobby
OU.
Mercer?
Bobby Mercer had a football scholarship to OU.
Wow.
As a halfback. But he signed with the Yankees, and the rest is history.
I remember that. Bobby Mercer, he was like the next, of course, they tag people, well, the next so-and-so, the next so-and-so, the next Mantle or whatever, which is always unfair as well. What do Lawrence Elkins mean to Don Truel? Can you imagine where you would be, what your life would be like, no matter what?
Well, if I hadn't, I'm glad I went to Baylor, first of all. I almost went to Oklahoma State, but came down to scholarship day, and Cliff Spiegel was the head coach at Oklahoma State at that time. His nephew was a guy by the name of C.B. Spiegel III, and C.B. and I lived a block apart.
That's okay.
And C.B. was a great high school quarterback at his dad's school, Capitol Hill High School in Oklahoma City. And he was a year behind me. And they recruited me, but then Cliff called me in and says, Don, we'd like to have you and all, but, I got my nephew coming next year, and he's a quarterback, and we're not going to be able to offer you a scholarship. And so I went to Baylor. To be honest, I probably would have gone to Oklahoma State.
Had you heard much about Baylor?
Not a thing. Only Baylor I knew about was a watch and the guy that played basketball, Elgin.
Elgin Baylor, one of the greatest players, and sometimes this name's not brought up enough for how good he was.
My brother was in the seminary, older brother, at Fort Worth, and one of his real good friends was a cheerleader at Baylor when he was in undergraduate school. And so through hook and crook, my mom would send my brother clippings from the Oklahoma City paper, and then he would give them to, I can't even remember the guy's name, and his parents lived next door to Cotton Davidson.
Oh.
So they would get him to Cotton.
There you go.
So basically, Cotton recruited me and called me and came up to the all-state game and everything.
You know, because a lot of times people forget this, and even when I'm old enough now, and I say that a lot, but where the internet is now just something people are born into. I mean, immediate conversations, cell phones, text, social media, whatever. So, you know, you see in the newspaper Saudi Arabia, and you go, I'm sure, letters back and forth that could take days, but how it happened, how some kid from Southeast High School in Oklahoma ends up at Baylor, and you end up from Brownwood, and here's Texas and here's Darrell Royal as he's about to start his great run. That's pretty darn cool. And the two of you have been incredible for Baylor, and Baylor's been great for both of you as well. Baylor football, it's like we mentioned before, it's had its ups and downs or whatever. What does it mean, and I know both of you might shy away from this, but what does it mean that when they talk about the greatest names in Baylor football that you are included?
Feel honored. Sometimes I feel like, golly, those people are a lot better than I ever thought about being. And that's how I feel, you know, when I see them nowadays, how fast they are. And then I think, well, wait a minute, they didn't play both ways, did they? But anyway, you throw that.
Not only that, you return kicks and punts. Yeah.
And kicked off.
And kicked off. And kicked off as well.
But times have changed. I mean.
Oh, yeah. Of course, I'd be upset if I wasn't included. You know, I mean, that's just your own personal pride.
I feel the same way. I was trying to be a little humble there, but
when we're up there in the stands watching the game and you see a receiver running, all you always say, that guy doesn't know how to cut. He's just rounding off his corners and everything, which is right.
Like a banana.
But we're kind of when I say critical, it's critical. We're assessing what they're doing wrong.
You can see it in a way that a lot of people may think they can, but you can't. You played the game. You played it at an elite level. You're in the Hall of Fame. You're in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
I want to thank Marquise Cooley and also Andrew Robertson. They're here today in the studio helping us with what's going on. Obviously, Armstrong Sims and of course, both Cole Barber, Ashley Hodge, and Brian Etheridge. We wanted to start. We had Grant Tapp in about 5, 6, 8 weeks ago, and you guys were next on the radar, and I know we've talked about this for a few weeks, and this is great. This is something that Baylor fans, I think, will digest. I hope you've enjoyed every second of this because it's been fun. It's not, oh my God, we have 10 or 15 minutes on the radio, or we have, a 30-minute documentary or whatever. Have you had fun?
Oh yeah, I had a great time. I appreciate it. And I know Lawrence does too, being asked, and good to see my old buddy and have a few words with it and all. We're going to go have lunch and
good
talk about who knows what.
And you're going to get honored by the Houston Touchdown Club here pretty soon as well.
In middle August, they have an award they give every year. I'm very humbled by it. I've been on the board since, speaking of Dick Magle, Dick Magle got me on it back in the late 70s after I retired, and as a board member. And then I was past president 6 years ago. And so I've been on it a little over 40 years. And they have an award they give every year they call Touchdowner of the Year to somebody within Texas, either player, coach, both, that's added not necessarily credibility, but noticeability, et cetera, to the game of football. Been a stalwart for football, and I'm following some pretty good guys. Last year, we gave it to Dan Pastorini. The year before that, last year we gave it to Terry Bradshaw. The year before that, we gave it to Pastorini. The year before that, we gave it to Archie Manning. And then, of course, all your famous coaches, Southwest Conference Royals in it, Slocum's in it, et cetera, et cetera.
And by the way, hoping and praying for
I was just going to say, our prayers are for...
Yeah. Hoping and praying for him and how he handles and battles what he has to deal with right now. Judy, your wife, is here as well. Appreciate you being here and being patient with us.
I would not have missed this for anything.
Well,
I thoroughly enjoyed all of it.
I have too. I mean, for me, I'm not a Baylor alum, a graduate. I've covered Baylor now seriously since 2010, and it's incredible to get to know the history and be a part of it.
Hear all the stories. It's just wonderful.
Yeah, it is. And this is what it's for. That's why we're here. Don, thank you, man. Appreciate you. I know you had to drive all over the state to get up here, and you guys enjoy your lunch. Bad. Lawrence, great to hear from you. Great to see you, buddy.
Thank you.
Always great. The great Don Truhl and Lawrence Elkins. I'm David Smoak. For all that I mentioned that are helping us get all this set up in SicEm365.com and SicEm365 Radio. Goodbye. Right now from the studio in SicEm365 and Baylor Nation.
At Baylor University, students can shine in their own way. Or should we say their own ways? Because there's no limit to the ways Baylor students make the world a brighter place. Whether they're leading a student organization or following a higher calling, getting advice from faculty, or taking part in world-class research, pursuing their dreams, or working toward their dream job, students find their place to shine at Baylor, where lights shine bright.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Tom Albers, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If your financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Tom Albers, 4301 Lakeshore Drive, 254-776-7605. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Car has the trucks, man. They have the one for you. Crew cab, short or long bed, silver, black or blue. Texas size selection, great prices too. Richard Carr, he has the truck for you. Carr has the trucks, man. He has the truck you need. If you want the best truck, you want a GMC. Texas size selection, great prices too. Richard Carr, they have the truck for you.
It's time to fire up the grill, heat up the oven, or get that deep fryer going to enjoy the top quality products at Waco Custom Marketplace. Order 30-pound sacks of live crawfish by 6 on Wednesday. Pick up on Friday afternoon after 2 or Saturday. Enjoy the weekend. 30-pound sacks of live crawfish available right now for $4.25 a pound. Find all the crawfish boil ingredients you need, including red beef potatoes, sausage, corn cobettes, and Louisiana boil seasoning. Make your order for live crawfish by Wednesday at 6. Pick up on Friday after 2 or all day Saturday, and enjoy the weekend. Waco Custom Marketplace, your home for fresh baked kolache, cinnamon rolls every day. Butcher shop to cut your steaks the way you want. Fresh seafood, summer sausage, boudin, house cured and smoked bacon, spices, seasonings, soup mixes, and more, and weekly gift boxes for any occasion. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like First Free Checking, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance has protected fellow Texans with auto, home, health, and life insurance since 1952. With more than 260,000 square miles of land and 27 million people, that's a lot to cover. Whether you're wrangling cattle or wrangling kids, we're proud to protect Texans in all Texan ways of life.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:55.
The Top 5 at 5:55 brought to you by Slapsticks Comedy Club. Open now. I was there last night for the soft open. We did our first show. There's tickets available for tonight if you act fast. Slapstickscomedy.com. Shows at 7 to 9. I'm hosting tomorrow at 9 o'clock a stand-up lineup, plus doing improv at 7. Slapstickscomedy.com for tickets. Get them now. We lost a legend in the film world this week in Richard Donner. Top 5 Richard Donner movies. Smokey, I don't know. I'm sure you've seen some of these.
I don't even know who Richard Donner is. Is there a picture
he's a
of him?
director. I'll show you a picture.
But okay, well, I'll probably know some of the movies.
Yeah,
okay.
you'll probably know some of the movies. This one I put on the list because I know if you haven't seen it, you will like it. Number 5, Conspiracy Theory. Mel Gibson, Julia Roberts. Mel Gibson plays like kind of a crazy guy who believes in all these conspiracy theories. And it turns out he's right, which is kind of scary in today's world.
He plays himself.
Yeah, he kind of plays Mel Gibson. Yeah,
okay.
But yeah, it's a great movie. It's good, kind of a spy thriller.
And what does she do? Is she an attorney or something?
She's like a reporter.
Okay,
she's a reporter.
All right,
I think. And so he comes to her because she
might have watched it back in the day. Julia Roberts and Mel, but okay.
Yeah. Number 4, Scrooged. Starring the legendary Bill Murray. It is a retelling of A Christmas Carol. Hilarious movie. A go-to for me and my family every year at Christmas. Armstrong is a huge Bill Murray fan, but he has not seen this one. So I'm hoping even outside of Christmas, this inspires him to watch it.
Scrooge was always picked on. You got a bad rap.
Scrooge,
kind of like Kevin
Ebenezer
Steele.
Scrooge.
Yeah, Kevin. Like Kevin Steele.
No, he got everything he deserved.
Okay.
Number 3, he directed the original Superman movie starring Christopher Reeve, and he directed Superman 2 until he was fired halfway through after a disagreement with let's just call it a jackass producer that was running the thing. So,
if a movie's good, why would you have to do 2 of them?
Well, I mean, if it's a saga, then you do it. If it continues, and that was his point, and then eventually let him come back.
How many Supermen have been made since this? I mean, it's like 5. See, like Rocky has 12.
Well, in this series of Superman, there were 4 with Christopher Reeve, and the last 2 are terrible. They're terrible.
I get mail from Christopher Reeve, the foundation.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I donated it at the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Number 2, Lethal Weapon.
Seen this one?
Yeah.
It's a Christmas movie.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
I don't understand how it's a Christmas movie, but I've always been told it's a Christmas movie.
Yeah, all 4 Lethal Weapons are good to varying degrees. The original, though, is the best one, and he did Lethal Weapon, and he kind of set the stage for the modern buddy cop movie with this. Any of our youngins seen Lethal Weapon? Anybody? Lethal Weapon? Jack?
Emma?
No Lethal Weapon.
How come?
Takes place in L.A.
Yeah, okay. There's 4 of these. Mel Gibson in all of them?
Mel Gibson and Danny Glover.
Yeah, Danny Glover. Okay.
Yeah, and then 3 of them, Joe Pesci.
Okay.
All right, and number 1.
Joe Pesci's the one that's the attorney movie. What's that one down in the South?
Oh, My Cousin Vinny.
Yeah. Good. Okay.
All right, and number 1, The Goonies, which for mine and Craig's generation is a movie we've all seen, we all love. It's great. It's kids searching for buried treasure in Oregon. It's just an awesome movie.
What got them to Oregon?
That's where they live.
Oh, okay.
They lived in Oregon, and they're like a little group of kids, and it's a great movie. If you've not seen The Goonies, you need to watch The Goonies. Watch The Goonies with your kids. But that is the top 5 at 5:55. Rest in peace, Richard Donner. Thank you for all the fantastic movies. He also directed The Omen, Smokey, which is a movie that freaks everyone in the world out.
Never been a big fan of the scary things. Never, ever.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks to everyone who's been a part of the show this week. All of those behind the scenes, including Hayden, Emma, Armstrong, and Jack. Thanks to Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina. We have a pretty good lineup lined up for Monday. Unveil that Sunday evening on the site. Good night. Have a great weekend on SicEm365 Radio.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need an MRI, ask your doctor for an Ideal MRI. Visit us at idealmri.com or call us at 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance has been proudly serving Texans across the state for over 60 years. Call 254-772-8090 to find an agent who will provide a free review of your auto, home, and life coverage.